All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Sunday Market Futures. We are here. We're live. It is Sunday, August 3rd. We are officially starting the first week of August trading. I mean, we had August 1st on Friday, which was obviously not fun, given the broader market fell by about 1.7% on the S&P 500. We lost, folks, $1 trillion of market capitalization of the S&P 500. Now, we gained 15 trillion over the past couple of weeks, or not weeks, past couple of months, basically since the April lows. So we had to give a trillion to gain 15. I think that's okay. But the broader question that I think a lot of people are now wondering is, hey, are we going to have to lose a lot more in order to be able to deal with some of the gains that we had, or is that the end of it? And I don't know. Today, we're going to find out, at least when the market opens. Right now, the futures are relatively flat. You're not seeing any big move in the futures. So, I mean, it would surprise me if we get any major move. Futures literally up or down by 0.01%. But tomorrow morning, when the market opens, I think we'll get a better understanding of it. And we'll see overnight if we get any wild moves up or down. We do have a bunch of news stories over the weekend that we'll talk about. This is going to be a very heavy macro data week. We got a lot of different stuff coming out in terms of the macro. Last week, the biggest piece of data we got was the revisions on non-farm payrolls. Obviously, the administration had a lot to say about that. So we'll talk about their reaction and how they are responding to the lack of jobs that have been added to the United States. And then on top of that, we've got Super Bowl for this channel, at least for a lot of us that have been covering the company for the past couple of years. We got Palantir. We got Palantir tomorrow. We had Palantir Weekly. For anyone who wants like really, really in-depth analysis on Palantir Weekly, I think it was a good hour and a half where myself, Amir, and Arnie went through what we think will happen. But I'm going to give my own kind of basic synopsis of what I think will happen with Palantir tomorrow. And, you know, I'm expecting some pretty strong numbers. What happens to the stock? Not really sure. We'll talk about it. But Palantir right here did fall about 2% on Friday. And in about 11 minutes, we'll see how this opens up when the overnight markets open. And we're going to get into it. We are going to get into it. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you all for being here. Jeremy, what's up? Gerald Fitz, what's up? Sherp, I think we have a good earnings tomorrow. I think we will have a good earnings as well. Also, HIMS is tomorrow. You got a lot of companies this week. I mean, tomorrow, the big ones are obviously Palantir and HIMS. I know a lot of people care about that one, or those two. But we also have, starting on Tuesday, a lot more companies that are reporting. Palantir and HIMS are kind of the main ones going into tomorrow. Well, also Mercado Libre is down after hours. And then we have McDonald's, Uber, Shopify, Disney, Oscar, Unity Health, AMD, SMCI, Arista. I mean, just you got tons and tons of companies over the coming week. So it's not going to be as big tech heavy focus. Big tech had earnings and they crushed, and we'll do a little bit of a synopsis on what those earnings mean for the broader market. But we got a lot of other companies that will be reporting, and we're going to see what they have to say as well. It is not my birthday, but thank you for the birthday wishes. My birthday is in October, but given all the birthday wishes, I'm basically like 180 years old at this point. It looks like he works for Mint Mobile. I'll take that. I will take that. Silly Bunt, what's up? June, Herbert, Zocold, what's up? What's up? What's up? Hopefully everyone had a good weekend. I actually got a decent amount of stuff done over the weekend. Again, we are moving out in August. So a lot of packing, a lot of planning, a lot of just like emails, phone calls, different stuff you have to get done. So that was the majority of my weekend. Didn't really do anything too crazy. Didn't go anywhere. Just a lot of busy work to get done. And, you know, packing is like, it's weird because like some stuff you need, some stuff you don't need. So it's like, what exactly are you taking? What are you not taking? So just all that random stuff needed to get done. Yes, Palantir earnings is tomorrow. Palantir earnings is tomorrow. We'll be live at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully I'll have a decent amount of people join me, but that will be the beginning of our coverage. I just moved, bro. It's crazy. Yeah, it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of random stuff you have to get ready for. But once you do it, then you are done. What if your wife tells you to sell hood after your marriage? Well, someone's not going to be a wife anymore. I mean, she better find someone else. That'll be in the terms of agreement of the marriage, that Hood and Palantir are not to be touched by any of us. All right, so we got 8 minutes. 8 minutes until this overnight market opens. Obviously, we got a bunch of different headlines that I want to talk about and get into. Earnings this week are going to be very important. We will talk about Palantir. I did put out a video on Grab. I know a lot of people have been asking for it. Put this out on X. It's about 30 minutes. So for anyone who wants to watch it, you can watch me yap about Grab. TLDR, I think they had a great quarter. Unfortunately, the stock price is not reciprocating, but also they put up a good quarter the day the S&P 500 dropped 2%, or the day after the S&P 500 drops 2%. So it's like, it's going to be hard for the market to react to it. But broadly speaking, if you care about the quarter itself, that is the most important thing for earnings. Okay, this headline on China banning crypto is like not real. China banned crypto back in 2021. They probably reaffirmed their apprehension against crypto, which is why Bitcoin went from 119 to 114. It hit 111 at one point. Ethereum down to 3,400. Bitmine is not going to be pretty when that thing opens up. I don't know if it trades overnight, but when it does, it's going to be a little ugly. Yeah, if crypto is falling because of China, I feel like that's a scapegoat reason. I think the larger reason is the macro sucks right now based on that labor non-farm payroll revision, which we'll talk about. And that right there is getting the market really upset. And risk on's kind of dying out. So I am just very curious to see what is going to happen in the month of August. Again, Monday starts the first trading week for the month, and we're going to see how things play out. But it doesn't look pretty. Like, to be dead honest, it does not look pretty no matter how good earnings are, because when you lose that many jobs, the market starts to recalibrate. Now, the one good thing about losing that many jobs is that the possibilities for a rate cut have gone up dramatically. Tom Lee sent out a note to his clients today, and I will give you the exact quote, but essentially what he said is, hey, although this revision for the labor market is bad, we're going to get a cut. And if we're going to get a cut, then we should be rather excited about it. Tom Lee said the economy is solid and soft enough that the Fed needs to make insurance cuts. And he said, as a result of this Friday decline, based on the Fed eventually cutting, it is an obvious, quote unquote, buy the dip moment. He also says, for now, I see further downside as being short-lived and largely contained, which, you know, is not the craziest thing to expect from Tom Lee. Here is Kevin Hassett, the National Economic Advisor to the White House, talking a bit about some of the things that happened in regard to that jobs data that we had on Friday.
There was 818,000 revision, making the Joe Biden job record a lot worse, that came out after he withdrew from the presidential campaign. There have been a bunch of patterns that could make people wonder. And I think the most important thing for people to know is that it's the president's highest priority that the data be trusted and that people get to the bottom of why these revisions are so unreliable.
Now, the big headline on Friday after hours that Trump said, hey, I am firing the head of the BLS because I believe that they are rigging. His exact words were, in my opinion, today's job numbers were rigged in order to make the Republicans and me look bad. Now, the irony of this is the only reason the probabilities for a rate cut in September have now moved on to 89.1%. These things were 30% on Wednesday after FOMC. Is because of these labor market revisions, the non-farm payrolls indicating that we lost 250,000 jobs, which is one of the worst revisions we've had in history. And we'll go deeper into like how that data matches up to the historical data. So it's actually the best thing Trump could have asked for in order to get Jay Powell to finally give us the rate cut. The problem is Trump doesn't want to get the rate cut in the face of economic weakness, because then he would have to admit there's a problem with the economy. He wants to get it for the hell of getting it, right? He wants to get it because Powell is just an idiot and he's not cutting rates. I don't know if he's going to be able to have his cake and eat it too, because Powell doesn't want to cut. The majority of the Fed doesn't want to cut. These numbers make it like very likely that they're going to cut. The question is, how bad are the numbers for the actual economy in order to get that cut? And that is going to be the question that I think the market wants an answer to as well. Here's Kevin Hassett as well on their deals that they are starting to get done with the rest of the world.
We have 8 deals that cover about 55% of world GDP with our biggest trading partners, the EU and Japan and Korea and so on. And I expect that those matters are more or less locked in, although there'll have to be some dancing around the edges about exactly what we mean when we do this or that. For the deals that aren't ready yet, they're going to get the reciprocal rates soon, and then we would expect that there might continue to be negotiations with those countries. We have 8.
And then here's a little bit more of him talking about the jobs data.
we've seen over the last few years is massive revisions to the jobs numbers. In fact, they were extremely reliable, the kind of numbers that you want to guide policy decisions and markets through COVID. And then when COVID happened, because response rates went down a lot, then revision rates skyrocketed so that the typical monthly revision often was bigger than the number itself. And now we had a number that just came out. The actual number for the month wasn't so bad, but the 2 months before were revised down by more than had ever happened since 1968. And in 2015, Alan Greenspan and I were asked to attend a conference at BLS where we were asked to give advice about how to modernize the data. And we warned that if they didn't try to let the data collection and calculation keep up with the data that was happening in the economy, that we would have problems like this. And finally, in the UK, they had a very similar problem. And in 2023, they had to, for a while, shut down the data agency in the UK for the same kinds of problem.
Now, look, he's right. We have an issue with how we collect data in this economy. It is absolutely horrendous that the data we collect is not accurate, especially when we're the United States of America. Like, it shouldn't be that hard to collect this data. But is it the fault of the head of the BLS? Is there a problem with the structural issues within the BLS? And like, maybe we need better software to do this. I mean, like, there's a lot of different questions, not enough answers. But the point is we need a new methodology for collecting data when it comes to jobs. And so I do think the Fed now has a very simple argument for, hey, it's time to cut. And these are the pieces of data that we have coming out this week as well around whatever could implicate the potential of a rate cut. So we have PMI tomorrow. We have another different type of PMI on Tuesday. We have the 10-year note auction on Wednesday. That's going to be a big one. The 20-year is important, but the 10-year is very important. So that's going to definitely be a market-moving event if that 10-year note auction becomes a bit higher than expected. We had jobless claims on Thursday. We have 5 Fed speakers that are going to be speaking at different events this week. And then we have 20% of the S&P 500 companies reporting. So far, again, earnings have been really good. Like, really good. We have not had crappy earnings at all. And so if we can finish it up this week with some decent earnings going into NVIDIA, which is going to be at the end of August, that'll be really important. But the multiple on the S&P right now, you can't really justify via rate cuts. You're going to have to justify via earnings. And earnings have so far lived up. Now, will they continue to live up? I don't know. But we are going to see what happens after we get more clarity on this jobs data. All right, we got about 30 seconds until the overnight markets open. We had Berkshire Hathaway release their earnings as well on Saturday. So we'll talk about some of their earnings. Kind of a nothing burger. I mean, nothing too crazy from Berkshire Hathaway. They kind of kept everything the same. A little bit of changes here and there. So we'll talk about that. But the rest of the earnings that we have this week are going to be the most important. And then we have some stats on the macro in regards to volatility, what's going on with immigration, what Goldman Sachs put up in regards to their take on the job revision. So we have a lot of that to talk about that we will get into as well. All right, folks, here we go. In about 3 seconds, overnight markets open. Overnight markets are now open. Let's see what we get from these overnight markets. S&P up 0.1, not too crazy. Reddit, which had a monster day on Friday, up 17% in the face of everything going red. That's down about 0.5%. AMD, flat. Netflix, flat. When I mean flat, I mean literally 0.03% moves. Circle, flat. Snapchat, flat. Meta, it's green by 4 cents, baby. We got 4 cents on Meta. Open Door doesn't trade overnight. Figma doesn't trade overnight, even though it fell 7% after hours. Dude, everything's flat. Like, SoFi is down 5 cents. Cloudflare is down 35 cents. I mean, there's nothing here. Google's up 12 cents. Palantir is the biggest one, moving up 1%. Palantir is one of the only names that's like actually moving right here. Yeah, this is the market saying we don't want to sell off stocks, but we also don't want to really buy them. Tesla, you got an 84-cent move. Hoodie, 27-cent move. AMD, 5 cents. Grab, 1 cent. Google, 4 cents. Disney, $1. I mean, you got nothing, folks. You got nothing. Where's Apple? Apple got hit on Friday badly. 202. Apple's at 203. All right, that's up 50 cents. Amazon, which got nuked after earnings as well. Amazon's up 70 cents. Okay, still down a decent chunk from from that 230 level. As you can see that red candle right there, 234 to 215. Yeah, there's nothing, guys. There's really not much movement. I wonder if the entire month of August is going to be this flat. MP Materials, that one's flat. You're not seeing a move there. TSM, that is down by 51 cents. Not seeing a crazy move there. I mean, you're just not getting a lot of volatility and a lot of trading. And this is normal for the summer, but you're really not seeing much stuff here right now. I put out the grab video on Twitter. If you go to my Twitter, link is in the description. You'll see the grab video. It's on Twitter, and you can see my thoughts. It's about 28 minutes around everything that happened. SMCI, that's flat. Apple, that's flat. Dude, we got nothing. Circle, nothing. AppLovin, literally nothing. Roblox, up $1. Uber, up 19 cents. CoreWeave, up $1. Rocket Lab, nothing. Nubank, nothing. Robinhood's at 100 at least. All right, you got 100. Palantir's up 1.15. Bitmine, how did that one open up? Is that... Okay, it's not trading on Robinhood Legend. Let me see if it's on mobile. Yeah, but if Bitmine's not trading, then you're seeing nothing there. That's basically flat. Yeah, Bitmine's flat. It's up 30 cents. It ended at 31.05. Now it's at 31.45. So nothing crazy. Palantir's going to be after the bell tomorrow. So like 4 p.m. 4 p.m. And we'll talk more about Palantir as well. We'll talk more about Palantir. And I'll give some of my earning preview thoughts. Yeah, Robinhood's making a move. That's it. I mean, SoFi, a little bit of a move. Google up 8 cents. Nvidia, dude, when has Nvidia moved 1 cent when the market is opened? I mean, talk about no volume, bro. Zero volume. Absolutely zero. You got nothing. Hims is moving. Let me see. Hims is all right. Hims is up about 2%. Dude, this is the August blues. People are tired. They're going on vacation. Hoodie's moving a little bit, 101. But outside of that, you're not getting a ton of juice. These are the earnings this week. So again, Palantir and Hims tomorrow. Those are the big ones. Got Axon, Vimeo, Mercado Libre. And then Tuesday through the rest of the week, obviously see a lot. McDonald's, IONQ, AppLovin, DraftKings, Elf, Duolingo, Airbnb, Dutch Bros, Rivian, AMD. I will stream the AMD call on Tuesday. So we will stream that call. I know most of you guys will not be able to focus on anything else besides that AMD call. So we will make sure to watch that. Snapchat, SoundHound, Trade Desk, Instacart. I mean, you're going to have a lot of earnings this week, but just not a ton of volume. Tesla's ripping. Tesla, it's up $1. I mean, MicroStrategy should be down, right? No, MicroStrategy's up, actually. Dude, MicroStrategy was down 9% on Friday. It's up 2% right here. So it's getting back a little bit of its gains from the losses on Friday. But that's it. Misty gave their dividend $1.18. So for those that own Misty, you got it. And if you don't, then buying in at these levels, it is at like 52-week lows or close to it. So if you believe in sort of the yield max strategy, not crazy. Nebius right here is up 0.5%. PayPal's dead as well, 67.21. That's up 10 cents. Meta is up $1, and then Amazon is up 15 cents. We are so obsessed, dude. We thrive on volatility, and there's none of it. There's no volatility. I mean, there's just not anything exciting. A couple moves here or there, you can say, all right, there's something moving, but not much. Not much. So this might be emblematic of what we've got going on. Where's UNH? Does that trade overnight? This might be emblematic of what we got going on in the month of August. I mean, you might have people that just don't want to sell. UNH is up 5 cents or 30 cents. And you have people that don't want to buy because of whatever reasons that are seasonal in August. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see tons of volume. Also, it could be just a Sunday into August. People don't care that much. And when the market opens tomorrow, we'll see more. But kind of get a feeling, Palantir is at least moving a little bit, 157 right here, that this is more so a seasonal thing. Because this is one of the first futures that we've had where like nothing. Like, where's the S&P? S&P, yeah, dude, it's up 0.11%. Like, I can't remember, especially after the volatile day we had on Friday, for futures to be this flat. Kind of just shows the market's like, all right, yeah, we had a nasty day. We don't really care that much to buy. We don't care that much more to sell. We're just going to keep it the way it is. And maybe that's how that ends up playing out. If the stream is breaking for you guys, just refresh it. It's a YouTube StreamYard problem that it was having during Palantir Weekly as well. That's not my internet. So just refresh it and it should start working in a better way. Oklo, is that moving after hours? Oklo's up 1.3%. So nothing that wild. All right, so let's get into some of the headlines. Obviously, market's not moving like crazy. We'll keep updated with it and see what we got going on, but volume's not there. That's okay. It's August and didn't expect the volumes to be as dramatic, but we can still talk about a bunch of different topics that we have as well. And then we'll do the Palantir preview. So let's do some macro stuff, and then we'll get into Palantir preview, and then we'll keep going from there. So first, let's talk about those job revisions again. We talked a little bit about it already, but here's what Goldman Sachs put out in terms of their note in regards to what's going on. So they say the net downward revision of about 250,000 jobs in May and June, 256 to be exact, or 258, was the largest 2-month revision since 1968. The revision was roughly evenly split between the public and private sector jobs. The revision to public sector payroll growth mostly reflected lower state and local government job gains. The revision to private sector job gains was concentrated in the underlying response data, which we see as more meaningful than a response to the seasonal factors. So again, Goldman Sachs is saying, all right, we're not super bearish. We're not super bullish. But obviously, if this was the largest job decline we had since 1968 in terms of a revision, it begs the question, how the hell are we calculating these types of reports? Because we probably aren't calculating it in a way that makes the most sense, and maybe there's something else going on. So that question brings up a more broader macro thesis, which is, wait a second, okay, if the jobs report is not as conclusive as we thought the jobs report was going to be, how does the market factor in the underlying weakness or strength of the economy, given that a rate cut seems all but inevitable at 90% in September? And I think the answer to that question is, as predictable as this answer may be, earnings. If earnings are strong right now, maybe that is enough of a hedge to say that the momentum is there. If job growth continues to decline, however, in September, October, and November, even when Trump fires the head of the BLS and puts in a Republican BLS candidate, whatever that may mean, then we've got an actual issue. And that could put a little bit of a pause on the bull market, because as strong as earnings are, earnings might not be strong enough to overcome the fact that there's weakness in the underlying economy if the jobs data is that bad. We just don't know if this 2-month revision is kind of an anomaly like it was back in 2024, where it was 818,000 jobs that we revised at one point, because ultimately AMD, by the way, is up about 1%. Ultimately, the BLS said, hey, they made a mistake of about 818,000 jobs, and the market reacted for like a minute, and then it didn't care. Actually, I saw one of my tweets. Someone commented on the day that we revised the jobs by 818,000, and the S&P 500 was up 0.5% in about 30 minutes after that revision came out. And my caption was like, wow, the market doesn't care. They don't care. And so I kind of wonder, given futures are flat right here, obviously the market cared on Friday down about 2%, but if the futures are flat right here and it's not a continuation, HIMS is up 2.8% overnight, maybe the market doesn't care again, because Meta and Microsoft and Apple and Amazon and Google just put up such gangbuster earnings, including Apple, which no one expected them to beat revenue by $5 billion, but they did. It's not enough to be afraid. And if it's not enough to be afraid, then maybe that's going to be okay for the broader markets. Can the earnings be adjusted like the job numbers? I would hope not. I think we need to have enough confidence in U.S. public companies that they're not lying on their earnings. But the jobs data definitely can be manipulated. And not exactly sure why they are manipulated the way they are. Novo, that one took a nasty beating last week as well, almost down 30%. Novo's up about 1.2. It was up 2% on Friday after falling from like 70 to 48. And it's up about 1.2% here right now. This is what Trade Representative Jameson Greer said about the deal with China, and then we'll do a little update on some of the trade deals that we have going on as well.
Did you get any commitments in those 2 days of talks in Stockholm?
So yes, we did. Yes, we talked about, and I won't go into detail because they're confidential conversations between two governments, but they really focused on rare earth magnets and minerals. China has put a global control on the world. And so for the United States, we're focused on making sure that the flow of magnets from China to the United States and the adjacent supply chain can flow as freely as it did before the control. And I'd say we're about halfway there.
Did you get?
So we got the Indonesia deal, we got the Japan deal, we got the EU deal, which was a relatively big deal, $600 billion in private investment, $750 billion of liquefied natural gas that they'll be buying. Now the question is, can we get a deal with Mexico, Canada, and all the other countries that, again, already have tariffs as of August 1st? Switzerland has 40%, Philippines has 20%. Can we get deals done with them? Jameson Greer says it is possible, but Sen says it's possible. I would think in the next 2 weeks, the market would want some confirmation on if that is going to actually happen. Also, China, the big thing there, as Greer said, is rare earth minerals in exchange for our chips. That's kind of the leveraging that we have, or the leverage that we have as the United States. So the question is, when does that deal come to fruition? And so far, Trump has not extended a 90-day pause yet. But it seems like he's going to, because if not by August 12th, we're going to be paying like whatever amount tariffs that we have on China. They'll be doing 55. We have 19. So that should go into effect, and that should set up the framework for September, October for a deal with India and China. India media said on Friday that a deal looks likely by October after both sides negotiate. There's a little bit of back and forth. Trump's getting mad that India's buying Russian oil. India saying, screw you, we're going to buy as much Russian oil as we want. So there's some back and forth from that perspective. But those deals should happen. And as long as they do happen, that would be rather bullish. We got Trump live. Here's a couple clips of what he's talking about. This is him talking about the BLS commissioner.
We had a very good weekend in many respects. We're seeing phenomenal numbers in terms of the business we do with other countries and the business we do within our own country. I mean, really phenomenal numbers. We'll be announcing a new statistician sometime over the next 3-4 days. We had no confidence. I mean, the numbers were ridiculous, what she announced, but that was just one negative number. All of the numbers seem to be great. And so we'll see how that comes out. And if you remember, just before the election, this woman came out with these phenomenal numbers on Biden's economy. Phenomenal numbers. And then right after the election, they announced that those numbers were wrong. And that's what they did the other day. So it's a scam, in my opinion. My opinion is it's just additional scam. We had a very...
Okay, so we'll probably get some more quotes from Trump, and we'll get some more clips soon. Let me see if I don't have some quotes yet, but we should be getting some of these quotes soon. I mean, look, we'll see what happens with BLS once Trump replaces the head commissioner there. But at the end of the day, I think the market is just more so concerned about the fact that we lost that many jobs and what that means for the underlying economy. And I mean, it is concerning to an extent if the trend continues. We only added 73,000 in July. And that's when we had, expectations were for like 115,000. So we had a miss there. And then the 2 months before that, we added less than 20,000, 14,000 in May and 19,000 in June. And we said we added 150,000 jobs each of those 2 months. So the concern is the trend on hiring and overall job growth going to be 20, 30,000 jobs a month? Because if that's the case, it's not that the economy has to collapse. It's just that, hey, maybe we don't have the best economy in the world. It's not soaring as much for that 3% GDP growth that people think is going to happen for. And we just don't have an answer to that yet. We need a lot more data. But as of now, I think that's the biggest concern to the market. Although I don't think the market, at least right now, cares that much. This is the headline on Trump-India stuff. Top Trump aide accuses India of financing Russia's war in Ukraine. A top aide told President Donald Trump on Sunday, accused India of effectively financing Russia's war in Ukraine by purchasing oil from Moscow after the U.S. leader escalated pressure on New Delhi to stop buying Russian oil. Now, I've spoken to some people who are in India that I guess you could classify as Indian nationalists just because I'm from India. And their argument is relatively simple. They say, hey, India has 1.4 billion people. We need cheap oil. No one wants to buy Russian oil, so we're going to buy Russian oil. And screw you, Americans. We're going to do what's necessary for us. And you can't really knock them for having that stance, right? You got almost 2 billion people. You need to make sure there's energy. And if someone's going to give you cheap oil, you're going to take cheap oil. The question is, can Trump convince them to buy our oil, which is not as cheap as Russian oil, in exchange for something else? Now, what is that something else that is going to make up for the cost of oil? I don't know. But I don't think India is going to easily say we're going to stop buying Russian oil, even though it's like anti-democratic and it's like not good based on the relationships that they have with the United States. They still need oil. They still need energy. So they're going to spend what they're going to spend. And I think you would have to have some really, really solid negotiating to get them to get off of Russian oil. And we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. Now, granted, we also got a South Korea deal last week, which was this one kind of fell under the radar, but some pretty good details in terms of South Korea making private investments and also being able to get a 15% tariff. So, that was not horrible. Obviously, I think we'll get more details going into the next coming weeks, but we need to kind of see exactly how this framework of a deal could potentially help India. So, South Korea will invest $350 billion in the U.S., purchase $100 billion of LNG, and completely open trade with no tariffs on American goods. Could the United States get a deal like this from India in a way that allows them to buy all of our gas over Russia's gas, but we give them something that, potentially they didn't have in the past? And we don't do that. I mean, we do trade with India, but it's not like as much trade as we do with like a Canada or Mexico or even in India or China. So, we're going to have to see how the market thinks of it as well. Pharmaceutical tariffs, that's also a big deal as well. Trump did say pharmaceutical tariffs are coming, and that's going to definitely be a major impact on India and China. And I think that's a piece of leverage that he has in these negotiations. But I think we're going to get a deal with a lot of these countries by the end of September, October. It seems inevitable at this point that they are getting ready to come to the table. The fact that we got the EU, South Korea, Japan, in whatever way that we got it done was important. And now that those deals are done, the rest of them, you're just not going to have these other countries sitting on the sidelines not wanting to get a deal done if it's time to get a deal, because the rest of the world woke up and said they wanted to get a deal. And my question is just going to be, how quick does that happen and how does the market react? Now, the market, in my opinion, is priced for the fact that we're going to get these deals done and we're going to get rate cuts now, because the market, for the past 3 months, as we've been going up and up and up, has basically said, hey, it doesn't matter. Markets can withstand any 10 or 15% flat trade deal flat tariff across the board. But now it's time for Trump to actually get those deals done. I think last week was good, but it is time to get a lot more of this stuff to happen. What happened to 90 deals in 90 days? Yeah, that didn't happen. that didn't end up playing out. But at least we're getting some of these deals. I mean, at least we are getting some of this stuff to play out. And, there's just not much more we can ask for other than hopefully getting this stuff out of the way. Here's a clip from the All In podcast talking a little bit more about some of these trade deals as well. And if this was the plan all along, which was to kind of use shock therapy to get the market to be scared and then eventually negotiate, and how these deals are coming together basically in a way that maybe was premeditated since the beginning of Liberation Day when it was originally announced to the market.
With this sort of 2.0 playbook, if this was Sachs premeditated and we all just didn't understand it, fine. The outcome here is this administration has to live or die by the results of these. $600 billion from the EU, $550 billion in investment from Japan. You put those two together. I asked Lutnick, is that at the event, is that going into the sovereign wealth fund? And how does that get, spent? And he said, at the discretion of the president, and he's advising him to spend it on putting more nukes in. So that's fascinating. We have $1 trillion now that we can put into nuclear power plants and these small modular reactors. And that's what Lutnick said he wanted to spend it on. He's going to advise the president to spend it on. But now we've got them investing in our country. It's absolutely brilliant if it works out. But we'll see if it works out.
April 2nd was Liberation Day, and the media went crazy. They were predicting a Black Monday. The market crashed. They basically tried to spook the markets and create fear. They said that we're going to go into a recession or depression. And now look at where we are. Just a few months later, all the markets are at all-time highs. Trump has extracted trillions of dollars in these trade deals that people didn't even know he had.
Was it premeditated? Tell us the truth. Was this premeditated?
Hold on. President Trump has extracted trillions of dollars from other countries using powers that other presidents didn't even know they had.
100%. Was it premeditated? Because it was chaotic. The market didn't make those moves because of the media, by the way.
And
the market made those moves because they were scared.
And we just had a 3% GDP growth print. So I don't see how things could be. What I think happened is that President Trump saw an opportunity here that other people ignored. It's like when a CEO comes in to a company, a new CEO comes in, and that company's been mismanaged for a decade. but it's got wonderful assets on its balance sheet. It's got a market position that's still very strong. This has been underutilized. And he came in and understood that the United States had tremendous leverage in all these trade negotiations. Actually, they weren't even trade negotiations then, in all these trade relationships. And he was able to essentially renegotiate all of them. And look at the results. I mean, they're just staggering. And, you know, everyone said that, oh, Trump's going to chicken out. He's not going to hang tough. It's all these other countries that have folded like, I don't know, lawn chairs. I mean, they have all capitulated.
Yeah, they folded.
It's
like
really
laundry.
remarkable.
But you're not answering my question. Was this premeditated? Give us some insight here. Come on.
I don't know what this is. What are you talking about?
When they came out and it was like, oh, 100% tariff, 200% tariff, the market was not making that reaction based upon the media. They were making it based on Trump was saying. So was it premeditated, this shock and reasonable negotiating strategy, or do you not know? Well, you're not privy to it.
Look, I'm not speaking as an insider here, but we said at the time that all of that was happening, and Larry Summers was on the pod preaching doom, is that all of that was an opening bid. It was all of the start to a negotiation, and we had to see where it ended up, and that the administration still had to stick the landing.
The answer is yes. All of this was premeditated. And thankfully, retail was able to see that it was premeditated. But the answer is 1000% yes. Like now looking back in hindsight, it feels more than obvious. And again, thankfully, retail was able to, even if it wasn't obvious at the time, just see through it, whereas institutions had no capacity to believe that it was obvious. But now looking back at that 40, 50, 70% tariffs that he was putting across the world, it was an opening bid. It was literally the beginning of a negotiation. And the way that the negotiating was starting from Trump was to spook everybody else and spook the markets and make everyone afraid that he was seriously going to put tariffs on to the tune of 120%. At one point, China had 150% tariffs on them. And that's when the markets tanked. So people are not wrong when they say there was a taco that allowed the markets to move. Remember, the S&P 500 immediately within a week recovered all the losses it had, and then within 3 months ended up making new all-time highs after Trump issued the 90-day pause. But that 90-day pause was a reaction to the market falling, and I think it was also the second step of whatever Trump's negotiating plan was, which is essentially to create so much shock therapy that now you got everyone interested. Markets crashed. Markets obviously realized that they are in shock from what happened. Let's resolve the market issue by saying it's a great day to buy. and then telling everybody that the tariffs are gone effectively with the 90-day pause and get everybody to the table. Now, whether you like that strategy or not, that's a personal decision. But the point is, it created one of the greatest dips ever in the history of the markets. In a bull market, for all of us to be able to buy the S&P 500 at 2022 levels, 4,800 from 6,000, now back to 6,200. And it absolutely, undoubtedly, in my opinion, was premeditated. It was premeditated. They knew this would happen. They knew the market would react like crazy. They knew they would do a 90-day pause. They literally said it's a good day to buy before they issued the 90-day pause so they could cover their tracks a little bit. And they knew a lot of other countries would come to the table. Did we actually need to do that? I don't know. Time will tell. I mean, would Europe have invested $750 billion in American energy if not for all the stuff we went through in April? I don't know. Would Japan have invested $550 billion? I have no clue. I mean, I think it's too early to tell. But if you believe that kind of shock therapy was the underlying foundation that would have created the ability for us to even get to these levels right now, then you've got to be, happy that Trump did what he did. If you think it's useless and it was pointless and it didn't really result in gaining any leverage, then, that's a different perspective. But to me, it feels like it was obvious. And as a result, we all got a good dip out of it. The question is, can we just continue to maintain this momentum because of that dip? So that is what we got in terms of some of the macro data. Yeah, 150% on China was wild. It's like, I remember that day reporting that in the morning where Trump was announced, hey, instead of 125, we're doing 150. Actually, it was 145, I think, to be exact. And I was like, these are just imaginary numbers at this point. But it led to eventually this stuff recovering and at least starting to get a lot more clarity on what's going to happen with tariffs. Everything else still flat after hours, guys. Snapchat flat. CoreWeave's up a little bit. Meta's up a little bit now, 0.5%. HIMS is up 2%. S&P is starting to move 0.2%, but not a crazy move. Robinhood 100.75. Palantir, we'll do a Palantir preview in a little bit. Palantir right here is up 2%, 157. You got some people buying going into earnings. Got a Reddit that's flat. AMD that's up 1.3. They have earnings this week as well, but not a lot of moves in the overnight markets here. So futures overall are flat. In terms of UNH, dude, a lot of people have been talking about UNH all weekend on Twitter. UNH goes red in the overnight markets. I don't know, dude. I don't know. I mean, like, I've been buying Grab, not UNH. So, I mean, for those that are buying UNH, that's fine. I think it is definitely undervalued. I think they'll be fine long term, but emphasis on the long term. Grab, I like the growth. I did a video on Twitter today talking about all the elements of growth that I really like. They re-accelerated growth in a lot of different verticals, and that's what I'm getting excited about. UNH is not going to grow, but they're really cheap. And so you don't need a lot of growth for that cheap price to revert back to the mean, which I think at this point would be at least somewhere around 320 to 350. It's just what catalyst will cause that to happen. And it's going to have to be some level of momentum with the DOJ case dying down. Maybe they're sandbagging on the EPS numbers. But everyone in UNH right now kind of just has to wait until it plays out. And if it is going to play out, then, you know, it might. But overall, we're going to have to see how this ends up happening when it comes to some of these potential value traps. I mean, PayPal is the same thing everyone thought was going to win back in 2023, and that one has just been a disaster. Now, PayPal is much different than UNH. UNH is, you know, it was the 15th largest company in the world. I mean, I don't know if PayPal is similar, but it kind of feels rather similar in terms of it being a bit of a value trap. All right, I want to show you guys this clip now from the Compound and Friends, which is another good podcast that I watched over the weekend. And, you know, a lot of us are talking about valuation, and does valuation even matter in this market, especially because earnings growth, AI, momentum, you got all these different things that are happening. Do we need to care about valuation? I think the answer to that question is yes, but how much do we need to care about it? Here's a couple of minutes of them talking about the concept of valuation and how relevant it ultimately is in this market when it comes to investing.
You, I thought, did this more thoughtfully than I would. What's the message about why valuation doesn't work for picking stocks anymore? And after we go through that, we'll diagnose whether or not some of those things will ever reverse.
Yeah. I mean, part of me thinks it's like I could teach a semester at school about that. Like, to answer it in 30 seconds isn't easy, but I'll just say.
We will spot you 60 seconds.
60 seconds. I'll say it's because the market makes stocks cheaper. Stocks that get cheaper on average get cheaper for a reason, that the fundamentals are more likely to be impaired, and stocks that get more expensive on average.
Has that always been the case?
Less than it used to be. It used to be, listen, I'll answer it this way. I used to think like value investing made sense and growth investing was crazy. In like the late 90s, when I was forming my investment matrix, I'm like, all right, well, I know like how much of a discount should happen in recession. I know where demand and supply is and when they'll run out of ability to borrow money. And I'll just kind of dimension the value. And growth was like, I'm looking at my finger and there's something called a TAM. It's a total available market. And that guy doesn't know, whatever. And so it just made more sense to me. And now I'd say it's like the exact opposite. Like, if I show you every stock that trades about 10 times forward earnings in the mega large cap universe, there's in a single one in there, you'd be like, whoa, that's kind of surprising that American Airlines is cheap. Like, of course it's cheap. It's going to file for bankruptcy in the next 10 years or whatever. Like, the traditional autos. Did you know that General Motors traded at a low price? Like, there's nothing on that list. It's all cheap for a reason we understand. And so the value guys just gambling on some future improvement that they can't see and have no visibility on. Because if they could, we would see it too.
That sounds more speculative than betting that people will still want iPhones next year.
Than betting on AI working.
Yeah.
Like, so I was at this pitch for a public AI high fee fund from this billionaire investor who was raising money on JP Morgan's private network. And I was like, I'm going to hate this. I want to like hear this pitch and I'm going to like be so cynical. I'm going to like mumble about it when I walked out. And even with my negative pre-attitude, the guy crushed it.
How much should you give him?
So it's funny. It's funny. He said, the answer is 0 because, I'm a cynical guy, but I was with somebody. I'll answer the question. So what happened is it's like a high fee public, and you're buying NVIDIA and Broadcom and infrastructure. And by the way, it's all 50% since the guy reads them. So the person, Dog and Pony said, hey, isn't this all obvious? And then he gave an answer, and I was like, this guy's money. He goes, yeah, this guy's got several $billion personally. And he goes,
is it Chamath?
He goes, I have made 120% of my net worth on things that everyone else told me was obvious, and then lost 20% on everything else everyone's ever told me about. And I was like, okay. So you bought some cloud computing 10 years ago. You're buying some AI stuff now, and you're trying to get me to sell it when there's 7 years left in the cycle. Come back to me, and like I said to you, at the party, it's 8:30. There's a dinner and a band and a party till 2 a.m. It's 8:30 p.m. You want me to leave?
Yeah,
because it's at 20.
The TLDR, I'll link the full pod in the comments for those that want to check it out, is things that are expensive for a reason. Things that are cheap for a reason. And the reason that mentality is starting to resonate with me a lot, and uniquely given I own Palantir and Hood, that are obviously two expensive stocks, but in my opinion, I would say they're expensive for a reason. And those reasons are, very strong and rooted in the qualitative and quantitative aspects of the company, is that there is so much capital that's out there. There is so much liquidity, still $7.1 trillion on the sidelines. And a lot of that eventually will come to the markets as rates come down. But there's so few opportunities. There really are. There are so few opportunities. I mean, like, you talk about out of the 8,000 companies that are in the public markets, and I think it's more like 10,000 globally. I mean, you've got like what, 150 of them that are like good companies to invest in that are actually growing, number one, which is what I think everyone cares about. Like, at the end of the day, are you growing your earnings? And then B, have a moat. And a lot of those companies probably don't have a moat, like a meaningful moat, or they have a very small moat versus like a company like NVIDIA, obviously, that has a very aggressive moat. And all the money is going to come to those companies because they're of high quality, they're growing, and they can prove that it's sustainable in order for them to grow. So the idea of selling these winners because of JPOW or because of the jobs data or because of this or that, like, it's just, a lot of it starts to feel irrelevant when you realize where else you're going to put the money. In gold, okay. In Bitcoin, okay. Like, Bitcoin's quality too, but it obviously it's just more volatile, right? Are you going to put it into a money market fund when Powell's going to cut rates? And if it's not Powell, next year, whoever's the Fed chair is going to cut rates aggressively. Like, where does the money going to go? It's probably going to go into the best equities that have already proved, even if they are expensive, that they have the capacity to win, which is why I think Palantir, Hood, Tesla continue to get that type of momentum. Now, Figma, for example, I mean, it's good that you bring it up. Figma right here. Do I think that this is actually worth $60 billion? No, but the market thinks there's not a lot of other valuable IPOs that have just come into the market that are actually able to grow as fast as Figma in the niche that Figma's in and have the sustainability of their growth. You can disagree again with the multiple that the market's giving it, and you may be right that the multiple is too aggressive. But the point is the market sees them as a company that is actually able to meaningfully allocate and be able to get capital allocated to it. And time will tell, if those companies can sustainably hold their power as well. UNH and Google, right? Why is Google not really catching a bid? The market doesn't see it as high quality, even though it's ridiculous to say that because Google is one of the most high quality names ever. But Google is still down year to date because the market does not see the potential of growth. They don't believe in the narrative, whatever it is, it's cheap for a reason. Now, that may be where you make a lot of money. UNH, for example, maybe people make a lot of money on this because it's cheap for a reason, but we have to acknowledge there is a reason it's cheap. Every stock that is cheap, like on an objective basis, I think objectively all of us can say Google and UNH are cheap. There is a reason. And what makes a market is if you agree with the reason or disagree with the reason, literally, right? That's where you get a buyer and a seller. But regardless, there is that reason. So I think in the next decade, right, when we talk about AI build out, ecosystem build out, data center build out, infrastructure build out, again, I shared that video on Friday. I'll share it right here again of a robot doing laundry inside of the CEO figure's house. Like, when you have this type of stuff happening in our economy,
all right,
it's just really hard to only care about a price of sales or a PE. Especially when the broader macro is okay. Now, the broader macro takes a hit, then yeah, you're going to have to start worrying a lot about those traditional metrics because people will just be more picky with their capital. But it's really hard to find these companies. Yeah, exactly. As Really Original says right here, it's also the trick to find those companies like Hood or Palantir. It's tough to find non-consensus, not priced-in opportunities. It's hard to find things that are contrarian against the market, be right about being contrarian, and then have those companies grow into the thesis that you had when you were picking them when it wasn't popular to pick them, which is where the most money is made objectively, right? That's the whole point of startups, right? If you invested in Airbnb when everyone thought it was crazy to imagine letting someone live in your home, some random stranger, well, Airbnb's valuation when they went for a seed round was $1.5 million. Today, the company Are they at 100 billion? Today, the company market cap is 83 billion. So finding these gems in the public market is not easy, but using valuation as the basis for how you come to the conclusion to find these names is also not necessarily the best winning strategy. And I think that's also important for us to kind of analyze as we think about the market long term. It didn't separate the whites. Yes, it did not separate the whites. Founder-led is key, no doubt. Never realized it till following you. Yeah, I mean, look, founder-led to me has been the best investments I've made so far. Palantir and Hood, founders. When I think of their competitors that are not founder-led, I always end up coming to something that is not a great investment, or an investment that just underperforms against those two because there's not the fire and passion of the founder. Speaking of Hood, this is what you get when you get a massive founder who cares. Here are some Q2 stats that people may have missed. Prediction markets doubled to 2 billion contracts. 1 billion were traded in Q2, which was incredible. 300,000 gold card holders. Credit card revenue has now increased for the past 4 consecutive quarters, bringing in 13 million of revenue. I know people are pissed off they haven't got their credit card yet. There are 3 million people on the wait list. To me, it's a good thing that Hood is taking its time with the underwriting of credit, because credit can blow up in your face very easily. We talked about auto loans on Friday. Not good, right? People are getting pretty delinquent on that. So I think Hood has taken their time on this, but still they're able to grow revenues 4 quarters consecutively in a row. Robinhood Strategies, their advisory product, this launched at the end of March, early April. It hit 100,000 funded accounts with over $500 million in AUM. I mean, that's wild, bro. Absolutely wild that they were able to grow that quickly, but they have. 600,000 international customers now across 30 countries in the EU. Dude, they spent $700 million in the past year and a half buying back 21 million shares at $34. I mean, talk about a discount on your buybacks and rewarding shareholders. The fact that they're growing this fast and buying back shares, they bought 3 million shares at $41 last quarter. They bought the tariff dip, is nothing sort of astonishing. There are not many companies that can buy back their stock and still compound it above 40%. And that's what Robinhood's doing. Margin book, 9.5 billion, all-time high. Gold subscribers, 13% adoption rate. For every new 100 people that join, 13 of them are going to pay $5 a month for gold. And then Robinhood's roughly 60% away from having $1 trillion in assets on the platform. Banking is launching in the fall. You have another Las Vegas event coming up soon for active traders. And then I believe on Friday, Paramount will be acquired by Skydance. I'm not confirmed on it, but it seems like this Friday you are going to have another company leave the S&P 500. I think we'll get some more confirmation soon. And, if they do leave the S&P 500, then a spot will open up on Friday. And maybe Robinhood will be able to take that cake. AppLovin could get in as well, but it could be IBKR. Yeah, it could be a bunch of these different countries or companies. But obviously, I think after this earnings, Robinhood should be a shoo-in, but maybe they don't get in. And the thing is, even if they do get it in August, like, what if August just sucks? So, like, they get a 10, 15% pop and then boom. Like, where's XYZ? Did it hold their pop? XYZ, so they got into the S&P 500. They were at 65. They got to 82. Now they're at 75. All right, so they're up a little bit, a decent amount from their S&P 500 inclusion, but still, maybe some time away from getting in is not the worst thing in the world. Now, on top of that, I don't want to be the person who brings bad news, but August sucks and September is not that pretty either. August on average, you're actually still green in August. It's a very small amount. But since 1945, the S&P 500 has fallen by an average of 0.6% in September. So although August sucks, September is objectively much worse. And that might mean, like, if history repeats itself, you got to just let it play out. And the reason I think last August was a bit different is because of the yen carry trade had taken stocks down so aggressively that people went in to buy the dip. You had Palantir get to $20 that day, right? But then September did suck. September was not fun for the markets. We had inflation come out at 2.5%, and we had one of the worst days in the past 15 years in September in that first week. When on a Friday, we also had a crappy jobs report. So like September, there's always just something that hurts us. And that means, maybe you hold on to cash and get ready to deploy opportunistically. But yeah, August and September might not be the best. SoFi could get into the S&P 500 as well. Now, SoFi, I think they need a couple more months of trading at this market cap, so they're not fully eligible yet. But yes, maybe the market thinks that SoFi is a better candidate and they could get in as well. Would you buy UNH or Amazon at 200? I would buy Amazon. That's kind of a no-brainer to me. I mean, UNH would be a lot cheaper if it falls to 200, but I'm sleeping like a baby at night if I buy Amazon at 200. UNH, I don't know. Obviously, I think UNH is cheap here. I just, at 200, like if I had to pick between both, it's pretty easy to pick Amazon. So crypto is supposed to boom soon. September is not the best for crypto either. September tends to be a little weak. So, I mean, and Ethereum and Bitcoin have had a hell of a run. Ethereum was at 2,000 a couple months ago, and Bitcoin was basically at like 95,000 during April. It got to 78,000. So it's made a hell of a move. Both of these assets, they've not really collapsed like some people thought they were going to collapse in the beginning of the year. But if they do take a hit, Robinhood and Coinbase are also going to take a hit. Coinbase took a nasty hit on Friday. It's a little bit more high beta to crypto versus Robinhood. It's down 16%. It's up about 1.6% right here. Robinhood is up a little bit as well in the overnight markets. But if crypto and Ethereum, if Bitcoin and Ethereum really do get wrecked, yeah, you're going to see the crypto derivative plays also get hit. And it is what it is. Like there's just not much you can do during that seasonal weakness. End of the 4-year cycle is also coming up. Yeah, so here's the thing, right? Like do we actually, let's do a poll on this. Do we actually have to face a crypto winter? Given all of the institutionalization that is now surrounding the asset. Do we need to have a crypto winter again? Again, when I mean crypto winter, I mean Bitcoin in particular has fallen by average. I think at the end it's like 55%. If you average out 2018, 2022, 2020, 2016, like it's ugly drawdowns. But now you got BlackRock, now you got the ETFs, now you got a lot more people understanding the story. Now you have Saylor with this perpetual bid. Do we really need to have a crypto winter? I think the answer is no. I don't think we need to. Like, I think this crypto cycle or crypto as an industry, now we have regulatory clearance from the feds. It's a totally different ecosystem than over the past life cycle of crypto, which spawns back about 15 years. And so I don't think it needs to happen, especially with rates coming down and liquidity opening up. But, it would be seasonally in line if it does happen. MicroStrategy is also very leveraged with Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, look, Tom Lee, he is also very leveraged with Ethereum. The net asset value for Bitmine is $22. If it goes below 22, they'll probably do a buyback of their shares that they authorized a couple weeks ago, $1 billion. But Tom Lee's in the same boat. I mean, Ethereum super leveraged towards it. SBET bought some more Bitcoin over the weekend, by the way. Sharplink Gaming, so they're leveraged towards it, and obviously MicroStrategy is leveraged towards it as well. I believe SBET bought like 70,000 more Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, Ethereum over the weekend. So they have a lot more. Now, in terms of VIX seasonality, let's take a look at this chart. The volatility index of the VIX has fallen 45 points since April. Very, nasty decline for VIX, which is good for the market, reaching just 15 points, its lowest since mid-February. The S&P 500 has traded above its 20-day moving average for 68 consecutive days, the longest streak since the 1990s. Historically, markets tend to be less volatile from May through July. However, starting in August, once again, as you can see on that chart with the red arrow, volatility typically rises by 5 points or roughly 30% over the following 3 months, which means we might have some more volatility coming up. Yeah, $300 million buy from SBET on Ethereum. And then on top of that, here's another stat that I saw today that I thought was really interesting. The VIX was up more than 20% on Friday, which means based on historical data going back 25 years, a rally in the S&P 500 is likely within 2 trading days every time the VIX goes up by 20%, which means there's a 95% probability of it occurring given the VIX spike exceeded 20% either on Monday or Tuesday. Now, that rally could fade out, but historically, after a 20% move on the VIX, you tend to get, because there's just so much volatility that, things fall down, market participants come in, they buy the dip. There could be a rally in the next 2 days, Monday or Tuesday, based on 25 years of historical data. But does that rally even last if the VIX is going to continue to go up 30% over the next month, based on the chart you're looking at right now? I mean, I don't know. So we're going to have to see a variety of different economic points come together to see what we get around macroeconomic data. We just got a new clip from Trump. Apparently, he was asked about none other then Sydney Sweeney. Let's see what he had to say.
Sydney Sweeney, it came out this weekend that she was a registered Republican. Any thoughts on that?
That who was?
Sydney Sweeney, she's like a very hot actress right now.
She's a registered Republican?
Yeah.
Oh, now I love her ad. Is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans. That's what I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad you told me that. If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
All right, there you go. There you go. Sydney Sweeney, that news did come out that she is apparently in the state of Florida, a registered Republican. And the reason she's even in the news is because of the American Eagles gene controversy that we talked about last week. So you got Trump that likes her ad on American Eagle. That stock, by the way, has not really made a big move. It was like a little bit of a meme stock for a bit. Yeah. Well, actually, it's up 5% after hours. Maybe it's up on Trump just saying that he likes the genes. There you go. Getting a little bit of a move. But yeah, he was asked about it. Okay, we have a couple other clips from Trump based on this little impromptu press conference. This is him talking a bit more on tariffs.
Yeah, I'm not looking for leverage. I'm looking for fairness. We want reciprocal as much as possible. Sometimes reciprocal would be too much for them to handle because it would be a much bigger number. But we want to see some reciprocity. We want to see reciprocal wherever we can. And all I can say is this: our country will be taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. You just said it. Already we're taking in, billions and billions of dollars. And it was very unfair. The world treated us very unfair. The next big move is going to be the price of drugs, because you could buy something in London or in Germany, someplace in Germany or many countries where it's 1/10, 1/3, 1/4, but sometimes 1/10 the price of what it costs to buy it in New York or some other place. And we're not doing that anymore. We're not allowing that anymore. That started many years ago when people were asleep at the wheel in this country, and they allowed that to happen, and I'm stopping it. The next big, well, we're going to pay down debt. We have a lot of money coming in, much more money than the country's ever seen, by hundreds of billions of dollars. And there could be a distribution or a dividend to the people of our country. I would say for people that would be middle-income people and lower-income people, we could do a dividend. But one of the things we're going to be doing is reducing debt. But we have hundreds of billions of dollars pouring into our country now. We should have done this many years ago. And I did it in my first term with China. We didn't get to the rest because COVID hit. And you couldn't really go to France and Spain and Italy and say, let's start talking about some tariffs. But China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we did it then. And then Biden screwed it all up. He screwed everything he touched. He screwed up. Well, we're
All right, so that's what you got from Trump on some of these clips. There you go. That's what you got. We're going to see, dude. We're going to see how the market ultimately interprets all this stuff as we get into the first trading week of August. But as of now, again, guys, markets kind of just don't care. Everything's flat. Obviously, a lack of volume, but also given how volatile we've been over the past 3 months, I think this is the time where maybe that volatility dies down. Or if that volatility continues to go up, it is short-lived or counteracted with just other things that might happen in the broader market. And that's why we're maybe not seeing that massive of a move on some of these stocks, at least not today. I also think the market wants to get more clarity on, hey, like, we know August is seasonally supposed to be a bad time along with September, but is there something Trump can announce that is so strong that the markets kind of don't care about the seasonal weakness because they're excited about a Canada deal or a Mexico deal or this or that or whatever it may be? And we've got a couple months to see if Trump can pull something out of the hat that makes people excited. UNH now down another 0.5% in the overnight market, so that one continues to get hit. And we just have to see. Can he pull that off? I think we will get some significant trade deals in August and September. I don't know if it's going to matter to the market. and a majority of it might already be priced in. But over the coming weeks, we'll have a better understanding. NVIDIA right here moving a little bit. That's up 0.5%. Robinhood up 1%. And then Palantir is up 2%. I think that gets us into Palantir. Let's end off the show on Palantir. And let's kind of give my overall thoughts on Palantir. Actually, let's do this question before. This is a great question. What were your rankings in the earnings? 1, 2, or 3? Who killed it in your opinion? Let's do that in the chat. So put your top 3 companies. It could be big tech or it could be other companies that crushed in earnings. And then we'll do a Palantir segment on my thoughts on earnings tomorrow. And we will be done for tonight. I think on the top of my head, in terms of crushed 1, 2, 3, I would have to go Microsoft, Meta, and Hood. I'd have to go Microsoft, Meta, and Hood. Microsoft, because that Azure number was insane. Meta, because even with all the spending they're doing on talent, they still were able to beat by $3 billion in revenue. And then Hood, because, dude, they grew 45% year over year. 42 cents on every dollar they bring in is net profit. I mean, like, I think Hood absolutely demolished earnings. So Microsoft and Meta are up there for me. I mean, I think it's undeniable. Microsoft and Meta crushed it. Google had a good earnings, but, like, you know, it wasn't as good as Microsoft and Meta. That's for sure. Amazon had a good earnings too, but they're not growing cloud as fast as Microsoft, and that's what the market cares about. So I could see SoFi on that list. SoFi, 44% year-over-year growth. I could see that as well. Reddit also, yeah, I could see that. I could see Reddit absolutely smashed as well. Reddit and SoFi were great. Grab had a good quarter, but it wasn't like, you know, compared to the other companies in terms of how big they are and how fast they're growing. Grab grew 23%. That's good. By the way, if you believe Grab's guidance, they need to do another $1.8 billion of revenue for the next 2 quarters to match their initial $3.4 billion guidance for the fiscal year 2025. That means they have to put up a minimum $900 million a quarter for Q3 and Q4. And if they only put up like 870 in Q3, they're going to be putting up 925 in Q4, which means going into 2026, Grab will be doing $1 billion of revenue every quarter. If you assume they grow 20% for the next 10 years, which is kind of what I'm factoring in my model, they're going to be doing $1 billion of revenue starting in 2026 every single quarter. So yeah, Grab was good earnings, but they're just not growing as fast as like a Hood or a Microsoft and Meta compared to the proportion that Microsoft and Meta are growing at. And so that's why I have them on top of my list. SoFi should be there. Reddit should be there. MicroStrategy beating EPS by 46,000% is not that big of a deal, given most of it was Bitcoin. And I think that's why you saw the market didn't care. But, you know, MicroStrategy in general, they've just done well this whole year because Bitcoin has gone up. So that's the biggest thing for them. Yeah, I would have to say it's those 5. If I had to pick, it would be Microsoft, Meta, Hood, SoFi, and Reddit. Like, I think those are my top 5 in terms of companies that just demolished earnings. Hood over Amazon and Google. Yeah, Hood's growing faster than obviously Amazon and Google. So when I think of Amazon and Google, I compare them to Microsoft and Meta, right? I can't compare them to Robinhood, obviously. And Microsoft and Meta demolished Amazon and Google by like a mile, right? Like they just like when it comes to earnings beats, Microsoft and Meta blew it out of the park. So Google and Amazon, obviously Tesla sucked. So Google and Amazon, they were good. They were not phenomenal like Microsoft and Meta. So then when I moved down to some of the more smaller companies like Robinhood, they absolutely destroyed. SoFi destroyed. Reddit destroyed. And I think those will be my top 5 that are up there. But this week we'll see as well. Coinbase did not have a good earnings, dude. Coinbase tried to use the same FASB nonsense that MicroStrategy used on saying, hey, we beat EPS because our Bitcoin went. It's like, again, there's nothing wrong with those accounting rules being updated. I'm just saying, like, people were expecting MicroStrategy to go to $700 because they beat EPS by 46,000%. It's like the market can be irrational, but the market's not always stupid. The market's not just going to be like, oh, let's buy MicroStrategy. EPS is growing 46,000%. It's like, no, it's Bitcoin. They know it's Bitcoin going up. They're already giving MSTR a premium to their NAV. For whatever reason, these treasury companies get a premium. They're getting a premium. And so I can't use the FASB accounting as the basis for why these crypto companies are that exciting. But I think those 5 are up there. Leave my Teslas alone. Well, I'm in Tesla now as well, so I'm with you. But objectively, it was a crappy quarter. And hopefully things will change by 2026. But it's, Tesla, same story. Like, all right, here's a good question. Before we get into Palantir, here's a good question. Let's see what you guys say here. Here's a good question. By the way, 58% of you said, no, we don't have to have a crypto winter. All right, one stock for the next year meaning August 3rd, 2026, we compare results. You guys ready? Here we go. Which one to hold for 1 year? UNH or Tesla? Because I'm picking Tesla, no matter how undervalued UNH is and how better their earnings are compared to Tesla, because Tesla earnings objectively are just horrible. I'm picking Tesla, dude. Like, and so that's my point. It's like, even though Tesla earnings sucked, the pure potential of what Elon's working on, which, by the way, they expanded the robotaxi geofence in Tesla in Austin. So that's exciting. Like, I'm going with Tesla. That's it. I was at the car wash yesterday, and I was getting my car washed, and wow, I was at the car wash and I was getting my car washed. Well, that's like that's I just, that was the most intellectual thing I've ever said on this show. But a guy came up to me and he saw that I had the Tesla, and he was just like, does it actually drive itself? Does it like really 70-30 on Tesla UNH right now? And I was like, yeah, dude, it's real. And he was like, dude, I am so tired of driving. I just don't want to worry about driving anymore. And I was like, you still have to pay attention. It's not super, it's not unsupervised yet, but like, it's legit. Like it drives me. I went to Boston, 5 hours, no interventions. And so he was like, all right, I'm going to check it out. Like, you got people that have heard this whole FSD thing, but Tesla just does a horrible job at advertising it, quite frankly. Like, they are not good at most people that buy a Tesla don't even know it can drive itself. They don't even know FSD is a thing, but it is a thing. So I think if Tesla works on the advertising, that would be a lot better. But this is happening, folks. It is happening, and it's going to become very real. And when it does, I think it's game over. But it's going to take time. Elon literally said, don't expect anything until the second half of 2026. And the reason I put UNH is because that's the same thing for UNH. Like, until the second half of 2026, you don't really know if UNH can pull it off. So I think it's a fair comparison. One's super growth, one's super expensive given their growth, Tesla. One is super cheap given their mediocre growth at UNH, but has like narrative headwinds. The other one has narrative tailwinds with Tesla. Which one do you pick? I would still pick Tesla. But we're going to see over the next year kind of how the market ultimately prices all this stuff going into it. All right, cool. Let's talk about Palantir. Let's talk about Palantir. So, what are you guys feeling? Nervous, excited? Let's do a little bit of a room check. What are we feeling on Palantir? Are we excited, happy, nervous, worried, covered calls, no covered calls? Selling some shares tomorrow morning, buying some more shares. What is everyone's perspective? Palantir on. Okay, I'm back. I should be back. I'm back. Yes. Am I good? Okay, I'm back. Sorry. That was the aliens, most likely. Or maybe it's I have too many tabs open, so let me get rid of some of these tabs. All right, we're good. We're back. Yes, we're back. Okay, what I was saying is Palantir is up 105% year to date. 105% up year to date. So in the face of all that has happened in 2025, remember we got to 120, then we got whipsawed back down to freaking 65. Palantir stock is still holding on 105% year to date. So I'm excited. I'm obviously excited for earnings, and I think there is a decent amount of potential. The question is, and I think the question that everyone cares about is the stock, right? What will the stock do as a result of being up as much as it's up year to date? Here's my take. I am the most stoic. I think one of you guys used that word in the chat, so I'll steal that word. Stoic that I've been on Palantir for any earnings that I've been a part of. And I've been doing this since end of 2021. So it's almost 15 quarters that I've been covering. I don't really feel scared, nervous, or excited. I just think Palantir is going to execute. And here's why. So let's go through a couple top line points, and then we'll get into the numbers. Number one, Palantir's already blown away all expectations. If the stock goes back to 100, I know it would suck. Like, I get it. It would suck. But they have more than blown away expectations. I don't think they're going to go back to 100 tomorrow or anytime soon. And as a result, the market has gone from dismissing them to now a top 20 market cap in the United States of America. Those companies can be volatile up or down. And so I just, in terms of share price movement to the downside, as much as it might suck seeing them get hit, I also know I'm going to be in this for a very long time. And I kind of don't care if it goes down, given it's gone up so much. And that's just a function of being able to be early in a name with a high margin of safety if it does go down. And by the way, if it gets anywhere near 100, I am buying. Like I will be buying. My last buy was at 134 when they got out of the Russell and they fell down 10%. So I would be buying more if we get back there. While many complain about its valuation, very few actually understand the underlying dynamics of the business. By the way, I'm one of those people that cared about the valuation at 45.50. I didn't buy more because I was so afraid about the valuation. I know you have people like Jeremy who recently sold because he's getting scared about the valuation. I get it. The valuation is not something we shouldn't care about. But as that clip said when I played it about 30 minutes ago, if you use valuation as the basis for how you make an investment in this market with this type of AI boom that we're seeing and this amount of potential for growth, that's what Arnie and Amir were talking on Palantir Weekly, which is that we've all been humbled by the level of growth Palantir has been able to actually sustain, then it might not be the best metric. So it took years for retail to understand it. Palantir, in my opinion, truly is a unicorn. And while the valuation is aggressive, you're never going to say the valuation is not aggressive. And I don't think the valuation will ever be not aggressive. It is aggressive for many reasons that are hard to understand at face value. And most people can't understand those reasons. Having said that, let's get into the numbers. Why is the market excited? Why is Palantir getting this type of 115 times sales, $370 billion market cap, top 20 company in the United States? It's because of growth. Palantir is guiding for $938 million of growth. The market is expecting basically $935 million or whatever. So like if they come in at 938, that'll be a very small beat. Palantir tends to beat earnings. There hasn't been an earnings in the past year and a half that they haven't beat, even if it was a slight beat. Market's expecting basically 940. I think Palantir comes in with 950, 960. And if Palantir comes in with 950, 960, we'll talk about the potential of $1 billion quarter, they're going to be growing upwards of 40%. So when you have top line growth of 40% revenue, which is inevitable, like I don't think it's, obviously anything's possible, but I think there's a very low probability that Palantir comes in tomorrow with 39% growth like they did in Q1. I think we're getting minimum 40. There's going to be a 4 handle there for the first time in 4 years, which is going to be very exciting to Wall Street. And hopefully we see a 5 after it, 45, right? Maybe we see a 50, but like I think that's pushing it, and we'll talk about the potential of that. But I think we're getting at least 40 to 45%. And then you're going to have adjusted operating margins of 40%. So the rule of 40, which is now the rule of 80, is going to be phenomenal. And as a result, I think when you have adjusted operating margins at 40%, when you have top line revenue growth of upwards of 40%, and you also have customer count that's probably growing at that 40, 50%. Remember, Palantir only has 769 customers. That will be 7,000 customers one day. That is where I think the street's going to get excited. Now, I don't know what's going to happen given it's August and September. Maybe Trump says something tomorrow and the market collapses, yada, yada, yada. But assume nothing happens to the macro and Palantir pulls up with a 45% year revenue growth number. I think the stock's going up. I might be wrong. I thought the stock was going up last quarter at 125. I bought shares at 125. We went down to 108. I could be deeply wrong. And on the quarters where, Palantir was 60 and I felt, well, maybe if they had 35% revenue growth, it's not going to be enough. The stock went to 80, right? Even though I thought maybe it will be flat. So I've been wrong on the timing of what's going to happen to the stock for the past few quarters. But it's hard to me to imagine the street's going to get upset at 45% revenue growth. Now, granted, is it priced in? I mean, like if you look at the numbers, yeah, Palantir is obviously priced in for like a decade of 45% revenue growth. So maybe the multiple doesn't need to expand. But could it, just based on the sheer momentum and excitement? Yeah, I think so. Am I expecting it? No, I'm not expecting anything from Palantir, the stock, because they grew 100 and the stock is up 105%. Same thing with Robinhood, right? I was very cautious going into Robinhood earnings. Robinhood demolished earnings. But I don't know how many times I said on the show, I'm not expecting a massive move. I would love for it to move. It probably should move, but it's up 3x in 3 months. Like, how can I be that greedy to expect it to move even further? I just can't, right? And so I'm expecting a massive growth quarter in terms of the numbers. I don't know what's going to happen to the stock. And the reason for that is because Palantir is capturing the imagination of the market on the possibilities to grow massively in the age of AI. You have multiple companies referencing Palantir in the earnings. You have SAP working with them. Every consulting firm from Bain to Accenture wants to work with them as a partner. The U.S. government is intertwining them in every part of the system. We saw the $10 billion 10-year deal they got on Monday or on Thursday, which was a very important deal for their overall growth in the Army. NATO's working with them. The best talent in the world wants to work with them. AIP boot camps are happening across the world. Their brand is growing to such a point that they're probably getting tons of inbound in terms of they don't have to like beg people to like try the product. Now people want to be associated with them because they're the cool kid in town. The ontology, which is the core thesis that we have been talking about for the past 4 years, is starting to become relevant to any enterprise that wants to deploy AI, because they know you can't just implement a large language model. You actually need an ontological operating system to make that large language model meaningful. Like everything that Karp has been talking about for the past 4 years is happening. Every catalyst you could imagine going in the right direction is happening. The only issue, which maybe it's an issue, maybe it's not an issue, is that the stock price has appreciated beyond everyone's expectations. And so now it's up to the market to figure out how much they want to evaluate if Palantir gives growth. Palantir cannot control how the market values it, but Palantir can control how fast they grow. And I think tomorrow Palantir is going to put up some serious, serious growth. And as a result of putting up that growth, the question is just going to become, hey, is this going to 175? Or is that growth not good enough and it's going back down to 140? I don't know. I don't know. But I'm going to be the most stoic I've ever been around Palantir, because I quite frankly don't care where the stock goes up or down. If it goes down dramatically, I'll buy more. If it goes up, I'll be happy. But my number one concern is the company matching to the growth expectations that the market has severely put on Palantir at this point? Because the growth expectations are massive, and the market is going to eventually want to see the share price match the reality of the growth. Like, we can all keep talking about all the reasons why the company's getting the market valuation that they have, and I've talked about that for years, but one of the main reasons is they've reaccelerated growth. Now, the market's paying a very hefty premium for that reacceleration, but if that reacceleration deaccelerates, the market's not going to pay that premium, and I just don't see that happening. Really over the next couple of years, definitely over the next couple of quarters. Especially not when you get statements like this. So this is going back to Fannie Mae when Karp was on stage. This is what one of the directors had to say. When you have these types of testimonials and this stuff goes viral and more companies want to get these types of results, it's hard to deny that they're not going to be compounding their top line revenue growth at anywhere near 40 to 45%.
So we did a boot camp with Palantir. We gave their technology 4 real loan files. Now, if you have a mortgage, there's a lot of paper in mortgages, right? Reams of paper. We gave them 4 loan files. It was a mortgage case, a fraud case, where someone had docked the financial statements, gave us fake. It was one broker involved in all these 4 cases. It took our really talented investigators 60 days to detect fraud in 2 of these files. It took your technology 10 seconds. Like, holy cow. So
you don't have those types of testimonials and then have a company that can't grow faster than 40%. And I think the reason Palantir is highlighting those examples, the reason why Robinhood is so excited to like have an in-person video, like, you think Robinhood is going to have an in-person call and invite all the analysts out to New York City if they had a crappy earnings? No, right? Like, Palantir's not sharing these videos and making sure people recognize how fast they're growing because they're not growing. They're growing. And I would be surprised if we see less than 40%. I don't think we're going to see less than 40%. The question is, can we see 45%? Can we see 50%? Can we see $1 billion? $1 billion in revenue. They did $678 million last quarter. So, or not last quarter, last year during this time. That would put us at exactly 47% year-over-year growth. We are going to get to $1 billion by Q3. It's going to happen. Like, $1 billion in Q3 will happen. The question is, do we get it in Q2? I don't know. That would be massively accelerating or beating the growth expectations that the market has. Again, the market's expecting 940. If we come in at $1 billion, that would be a $60 million beat. But could I see that happening? Yeah, I could. I really could, especially if Palantir just wants to say, hey, we are not slowing down. This is our moment. We got a lot of deals. We have a lot of customers. Our net dollar retention's going up. Like, yeah, we did $1 billion this quarter. We're going to do $1 billion and $1.1 billion next quarter, $1.3 billion the quarter after that. And then going into 2026, we might start averaging $1.5 billion every quarter. Like, that's the type of top line growth we need to see for this thing to really expand the multiple from the current multiple, because obviously the current multiple is very aggressive on Palantir. Now, I'm not expecting $1 billion. I don't want to put that type of pressure on them because they didn't guide for that. They will beat the guide. They're not going to come up with 940 million. Question is, can they come up with like 970, 980, maybe $1 billion? And we're going to find out. We're going to find out tomorrow. But, overall, I don't really care long term what the stock does. I just kind of care about the execution itself. If they come out with 1.2 billion, that's going to be, dude, that would be what, a $300 million beat? Yeah, that'd be aggressive. I'm not expecting that. But I'm expecting, 955 to 960, and I think that would be very exciting. Now, government growth international is obviously not good. And government growth or international commercial growth is also not good. I think last quarter we added one customer commercially, internationally. So we have some issues on the growth side across the world, but U.S. commercial is the story. U.S. commercial cannot be the story forever. We're going to need to expand that international presence. And I think that's what Palantir has been working on. That's going to be like, if you want to know what the number one thing as a long-term shareholder I care about, it's that. Are we growing international? And if we're not, I think Carp's going to be honest and just say, hey, we're not growing it because Europe has issues and they said blah, 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 blah. He did say on the last earnings call that they are starting to get inquiries from other countries and their governments across the world. I think he mentioned Japan and South Korea in particular. But yeah, I mean, like that to me is very, very important. Profitability is going to be good. Adjusted operating margins are going to be good. Like we're not going to have issues on some of those core metrics, but obviously international government growth would be, nice to see. And if we can get that, then that would be very exciting as well. Also, I'm just going to say it right now. We might get a super long letter, shareholder letter. People got mad at me last time for reading the whole shareholder letter. I'm going to read the whole shareholder letter. So if the shareholder letter is 5 pages, like it was, I think last time it was like 8 pages, I will be reading the whole freaking letter. So hope no one gets too upset at me for reading the letter. But like, it's like, this is, if they want to release a letter and they want to specifically talk about the philosophical understanding of what, the world will look like, then yes, we're going to read that letter. And, it should also give us a better understanding in general of what's going to happen to Palantir long term if we get some statements from the CEO. So yeah, that might be something that we have to look at as well. I'm not going to be asking a question on the call, so no one expect that. Like, honestly, I'm not even just saying it to like surprise you guys. Like, I'm not asking a question on this call. So they usually have a couple analysts on the call. I will not be one of the people asking that question. But I think, the major question that I'm going to care about, like number one, is government growth, international, and then commercial growth, international as well, to see if they can ultimately get there. But I will not be asking the question. I want to pull up a clip right here of Carp talking about some of this government growth back in the previous call. So let me just pull this one up right here, because this part I think is really important. Did you go golfing? I know this is a golf shirt, but even though I can't say golf correctly, but I'm not a golfer. Why do I say it with a U instead of an O, bro? I don't know why. I don't know why I say it like that. Let me see if this is the exact clip right here of Carp talking about it. But this is, I believe, when he was asked about some of the government growth, and here is, I believe, the response that he had on it.
Model that has failed to deliver for the. We go through a difficult time in America, or there's Doge. How will that affect your software sales, basically? And Palantir does exceptionally well when things are pen tested. We like pressure on the system. We need pressure on the system. And then why is it better for America? Because that pen testing forces you to ask questions like, does the software work? How does it work? How does it manage ethical concerns? How does it manage data protection? How does it manage output? Without pressure on the system, one of the myths is that if you don't have pressure on the system, you just spend money, you somehow get a better system, both in terms of output and in terms of ethics. But actually, you get neither. And so in reality, we need pressure on the system. We need people to have to change. We need people to have to transform. This is why they put up with us. And once they see those results, they stick with us.
Thank you both. Our next question is from...
Okay, so that was one of the clips of Carp talking a little bit more about kind of their international side of the business, or just like their overall U.S. part of the business that's in the government. I'm going to try to find the international part that he talks about as well. But he acknowledged, hey, international government growth is not the best, but they're starting to see some more inquiries internationally, and this is going to be the quarter where we see if any of that inquiry turns into actual revenue. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But we are going to see going into tomorrow. Yes, I actually can't say golf. Dude, I told you guys that my mouth works in a certain way. My lips move in a certain way. I can't say Massachusetts. Like there's certain words. Golf ends up sounding like a U versus an O. I don't know why. It is what it is. That's how it happens. And it's just how I talk, dude. It's weird. It's the Gulf of America. Yes, exactly. So there you go. But overall, I think it's going to be a good quarter. Like I really do think it is going to be a hell of a quarter, and it's going to be one of those quarters where the market's just like, okay, so here you go. You know, like the market's like, either we keep the multiple and we don't tank like we did last time, because the quarter was still good last time. It's just it wasn't phenomenal enough to justify the multiple, at least in the eyes of the market. But now we're way higher than we were last time. Last time we dumped to 108. Now we're at 150. And there is going to need to be some business results to be able to justify that. And I guess we're going to find out tomorrow exactly, how the company can put up those numbers. But if they do, I think it's going to be pretty good. Do you get better stock picks on the golf course or in the gym? That's a good question. That is a good question. It goes bowling. Instead of bowling. Here's the thing. Let me ask this question. Let's say Palantir is down 15% tomorrow after hours. Who's going to be upset? Let's say they put up 45% revenue growth. Everything's good. Customer count is strong, yada, yada. Maybe there's little nitpicky things that you can get mad about, but there's no like glaring red flag, because if there is, then it would be, justified to take a dip. Let's just say the market's the market and it falls. Are people going to be upset? Because if the quarter's phenomenal and there's not like Grab, right? I thought the quarter was phenomenal. I did a Grab video on my channel. You can, or on Twitter, you can watch it. Stock's down. I'm annoyed, but I'm not like, oh my God, I'm super upset, because I thought the quarter was good and I care about Grab in the long term. If the quarter was bad, I would just flat out say, dude, I didn't like this part of the quarter. If Robinhood's quarter was bad, I would just say, I don't like this, and I can understand how the market's reacting. If Palantir's quarter is bad, I will say the quarter is bad. If the quarter is good and the stock price doesn't reciprocate, okay. Like, yeah, it's the market. The market is the market. So, I mean, people will be upset because their portfolios will go down, but that's not something to necessarily be upset about the company. Because then again, why did your portfolio go up this much on Palantir? Well, has there been any reason for Palantir to have the dramatic run up it's had this year outside of like good earnings in Q1 and then overall AI sentiment that's like super strong? No, right? It's a lot of momentum that the market has been feeling about the potential of Palantir. So if this quarter delivers a good quarter, but it's just not up to that potential that the market interpreted with, okay, then it resets. Like, it is what it is. If you believe in this company compounding for the long term, you believe they will be able to continue doing what they need to do. And as a result, any short-term price movement, like, I know it's super cliche to say this, but it's just not going to be the most concerning thing in the world for me, especially when you have something like this going on. So we'll get back to Palantir in a second, but this headline was wild. Remember that guy I told you Zucks tried to get for $1 billion from Mira Murati's, who's the former OpenAI CTO's new AI startup called Thinking Machines Lab? It wasn't $1 billion. It was 1.5. It was 1.5. He's a co-founder of Mira Murati's startup. He worked at Meta for 10 years. If you go on his LinkedIn, his name is Andrew Tulloch. He worked at a Meta for 10 years. So like Zucks knows the guy, but then he left to go at OpenAI, and then he left OpenAI to go work with Mira Murati. And Zucks asked him to come back for 1.5 billion, and he said no. He said no. The dude said no for over 6 years, 1.5 billion. I mean, when you have that level of commitment coming from someone, it is pretty remarkable. And obviously, it's one of those things where, AI is so large in terms of its TAM to the point where Zucks is wanting to give one person 1.5 billion. What does that mean for Palantir? Well, that means Palantir has a really big opportunity to scale. Because if Zucks is willing to give 1/4 of Palantir's revenue for 2024 to one guy to be able to help him capture the AI opportunity, what do we think the actual TAM is for Palantir? I think it's infinite in terms of the market opportunity and their ability to scale. The question is just, when they will be able to do it. Do you have a time frame to hold Palantir? I think it's until the thesis stops becoming the thesis, then you hold any company, right? Like that's kind of a rule of thumb. Like, do I have a time frame for Robinhood? No. When I'm 28 right now, when I'm 38, am I going to think Robinhood's a much bigger company than it is today? Yeah. And when I'm 38, if I think when I'm 48, Robinhood's going to be a much bigger company than what I hold, yeah. Like there's not really a reason for me to sell unless like I need to pay my taxes or I need to make a major life decision. I need to make a purchase. But like, again, this goes back to the question we had in the beginning of the show. If you sell a Palantir, if you sell a Hood, if you sell a Tesla, an NVIDIA, where do you allocate the capital? Because then you have the burden of having the cash that you need to put into something, because if you're an investor, that cash has to compound. With Palantir and Hood, given when I bought them, I don't see massive opportunities outside of these guys that are so necessary for me to sell right here or in the next couple of years, unless the thesis changes, to then allocate capital to. So yeah, as long as it's not like I'm blindly holding them because I'm emotionally attached to them. It's the companies are executing. There is not a reason to sell. And if there's not a reason to sell, then, there's not a better opportunity than some of those names to put it in. Here's Karp in the last earnings call talking as well a little bit more about some of their commercial growth along with the government.
Which means, it's like there's going to be maybe lumpiness, but we predict we're going to do very, very well. Basically where you have pressure testing, you can assume AIP, AI Foundry, Ontology, Apollo, and the Palantir culture itself. I mean, we are a warrior culture. Like that's why our whole culture is built around putting the exact right team and the exact right product at the final mile. And so where you have environments that are crucial and under pressure, you can expect, and where meritocracy happens. It's like, we need meritocracy. How do you get meritocracy? Well, there's lots of ways to get meritocracy. One way is because you're scared. And then you buy the best product, you install the best product, and then the part that's anti or correlated different than people think is you also get the best ethics, the best execution, and that, of course, and then you can ask a simple question. Why is this a moat? Okay, well, I can tell you why it's a moat, because heretofore, no one has gotten into these environments at scale under any circumstance. And if they did get in, they got in with services. So now we have a single purposed, highly formed stack of software that is exactly right for this moment, with a culture that's exactly right to implement it, which a culture that can teach people how to do this, that is now charismatic for some, it's anti-charismatic for others. And that de facto, it's the compounding rate of return on that stack. And to Shyam's opinion, the opinionation we have about how to do this, it's essentially allows you to express your tribal knowledge of your enterprise in a way you could never do it before, on the terms of your enterprise, with unit economics that are heretofore impossible to do. And that's what's happening in this country, and really in 90% of our market, which explains like the 49% growth and the rule of 83, despite what would be viewed on the outside as large ineptitudes in sales and go to market and how do we interact with people, and our opinionation, both on the outside, on the inside, and with the frontline customer, which is like, we're not agnostic to using our software as shelfware. We are not in the shelfware business, which is another reason why pressure in the government really helps us. We've never done shelfware. We don't do shelfware. We don't think our personality can afford shelfware.
Thank you, Alex.
I mean, obviously, you see the passion, dude. Like, this game, when it comes to the stock market, is also rooted in your ability to articulate your message to the world. And when you can actually articulate your message, you can win, you can inspire, and that's what Karp's been able to do. Here was another answer he gave as well pertaining to government and commercial.
In the future, it will. And then, as you know, Europe is not Europe. You have Eastern Europe, you have Germany, France, you have they're very different Europes. Europe that is scared understands that you're going to have to do software, hardware, hybrid systems, and our products are very, very well known and differentiated. It could take a couple years for Europe to understand that you just can't spend money. You're going to have to spend it on things that actually work, and work means spending it on people that have actually done this on the battlefield. I would say our plan is to continue to be roughly in the zone where 90% of our business is growing like it is now at 49% with this rule of 83, and somewhere in that range, we guided to rule of 80. And that's going to be primarily driven by the US. I would say as a unknown variable, we're seeing very significant demand for our software, our government software around the world outside.
So this is where he says, we are seeing demand for government software, PG, Gotham, outside of the US. Now, is this going to be the quarter where you see international government growth ramp up? I don't know. But he did say 90 days ago, hey, governments across the world are asking. It's just a question of, is this the quarter or is it towards the end of the year where they actually deliver that software to other parts besides just the US government?
Demand for our software, our government software around the world outside of Europe. And those are early days, but, the demand, the signal there is very strong.
He's passionate. He is passionate. He believes in this mission. The coolest thing about Palantir every time, it's always kind of emotional for me because it's like so many of us just like got into the journey and into the mission of covering this 4 years ago. And what it's turned into is a stock that has a valuation that no one can reasonably explain, right? Every day I try to justify it with another different way of wording, but no one in the media, no one in Bloomberg or CNBC can make sense of why Palantir trades the way it trades. But still it does. And so you have a portion of the economy or the portion of the market participants saying, oh, meme stock, don't touch it. And then you have another portion of the market saying, no. It's trading at that multiple because there's X and Y and Z and all this stuff. And maybe the numbers don't necessarily mean that it gets to trade at these types of multiples. But if you look into the story and look into the vision and the potential of growth, so you have all these conflicting narratives around the unicorn that is Palantir. And for the past basically 2 years, ever since May of 2023, when they first became GAAP profitable, it has been nothing but massive execution. And all of us, when I mean us, I mean retail, I mean all of us people that work regular jobs and take a little bit of our money and try to invest what we can, we've been along for the ride. Who's not been along for the ride? The institutions. They haven't been along for the ride. They just have not. They have not owned this stock. Now they have to own this stock, right? It's kind of required in your fund to own a little bit of Palantir. But the institutions did not get to see the company evolve with us. And the biggest problem now for all of retail, or like the biggest concern or question, is like, well, is it expensive? Is it overvalued? Is it too good? And it's like, if that's the problem, I'll take that problem any day of the week. I will take that problem any day of the week if I get to see the market react to this company that has grown from becoming the outsider black box that was perceived as the most evil company in the world to now being the most compounding, dominant, pure play force when it comes to the age of artificial intelligence. It's exciting. It's very, very, very exciting. And then you got Loop Capital coming out saying, hey, 178. You got Piper Sandler saying 170. You got all these firms that didn't want to look at it for years that are coming out now and saying, we cannot ignore this. And in 2021, 2022, a lot of us didn't ignore it. And as a result, we've been able to be rewarded to see Palantir get this momentum. Desi Miami, thank you for the $300 super chat. That is very, very, very kind. Go get your Miami Heat jersey and hat online before coming to Miami. Look forward to meeting you. Appreciate your content. Thank you so much for the super chat. I'm going to have to get a Miami Heat jersey now. What player should I get? What players do I think I got to get D-Wade, right? I got to get D-Wade. He's like a Miami legend. Thank you so much for the super chat. Deeply appreciate it. For those that want to come to the Miami meetup, I'm putting the form in the chat. You can check it out. I emailed a bunch of you guys that signed up already. If you have not signed up, there's a couple of steps you have to do to officially come to the meetup, or just like to confirm your spot. So if you sign up, you'll probably get an email from me tomorrow for those that want to make it to Miami. 8/23, August 23rd. We will be living it up in Miami. Desi, again, thank you. Desi, I actually know her personally, and we've talked on the phone, and she's a fan of the channel. She made a killing off Palantir. She got in, dude. It's so funny because a lot of people found my channel back when Palantir was 20, but not when it was originally 20, when it was 20 after the earnings dump of May 2024. So it went from like 25 to 20, great quarter, fell 20. And then a lot of people were like, all right, I'll buy some Palantir. And that's when a lot of people kind of found my content. So even if you bought it then, it's just been incredible, even if you weren't there back in 2022. And yen carry trade gave you another opportunity, right? The market gives opportunities. They fell to 60 back in the tariff stuff. So Thank you so much for the super chat. Congratulations on Palantir, and we're gonna get another quarter tomorrow to see how this plays out. Jimmy Butler, didn't he leave Miami? Is Jimmy Butler still there? Didn't he leave? Is he still in Miami? No, he's in the Bay Area. Why would I get Jimmy Butler? Dude, I gotta get D Wade. It's D freaking Wade, bro. That's the guy in Miami. Alonzo Mourning is he's good. Bam Adebayo is chill. LeBron, was there. Then he let dude. Not many. I think I see one LeBron comment. No one cares about LeBron, bro. No one cares about Shaq is legit. It's got to be D Wade though. I think it's got to be D Wade. Yeah, Butler left to California, bro. Butler's out, so we got to be there. Yeah, dude, I'm excited. I'm excited for Palantir. I'm excited. Again, I don't want to get people's hopes up in terms of the stock price because the stock has done what it's done, and it could fall, it could go up. Like, we just don't know, and I'm not as definitive on the price action because the stock's up a lot year to date. Same thing with Robinhood. It was up a lot year to date, but I believe Robinhood would crush it. Robinhood crushed it, and now it's up to Palantir to kind of do the same, which I think they will. So it's exciting. It's just been one of the most exciting stories of a lifetime. It's hard to like someone's got to write a book about this. Someone's got to make a movie about this. Like, the idea that one of the most complex technological companies in the market, Palantir, that Foundry, AIP, Apollo, like, what is the fact that retail investors got excited about it and came together and said, this is going to be the thing that we believe in. And then it works out, but not just works out. I mean, most people would have been happy when it was a $6 if it could get to freaking 20. Like, that was like, hallelujah, we got to 20. Then it got to 30. We're like, all right, awesome. It outperformed. Then 40, then 50, then 60, then 70, then 80, then 90, 100, 110, 20, 30, 40, 150. It has been a remarkable journey. And the good thing is Palantir is in the inflection of their growth phase. So even if the valuation is aggressive, if they keep growing, again, that market is forward looking. That growth could sustain the multiple if they're able to keep it up for the next 5 to 10 years. And we know Karp's motivation right here. Let me see if I can get this clip up as well. Karp is not focused on 1 trillion. Karp is focused, in his words, to 3 trillion. Karp believes this has a long runway to go.
5-year-olds, Alex and Peter, today start and work on if they had the chance. So you're 25 years old now.
Yeah.
And it's today. It's
I'll give you a very
2025.
But I think
you can. And I say you cannot choose Palantir.
Well, we got to get to 3 trillion. We're at 10%. Well, let me.
That's when the market cap was 300 billion. And he says, well, we got to get to 3 trillion. We're at 10%. I mean, Karp is a guy who loves the journey, in my opinion, more than the destination. The destination is fun, right? But the journey, or the destination, is exciting to achieve. But the journey to get there is, I think, what most founders and entrepreneurs truly thrive on. And in that journey, you tend to have the opportunity to win and go on an adventure of a lifetime. And this is part of that adventure, which is proving other people wrong. And Karp is no stranger to the thrill of being able to prove other people wrong.
Wait, the other thing is, to make things work, you've got to have your every part of your body and every part of your mind focused on this for 5 years. Try that. It's really hard to do. And so to organize yourself around doing that, you need a higher purpose. And I also think you often need a lower purpose. Like, the higher purpose for me.
What's a lower purpose?
Well, I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us. So that's my lower purpose. And yeah, and others. But the higher purpose for me.
I think that's top 5 Karp moment. That's top 5 Karp moment. When I met him at AIP Con, this was in March. I talked to him about that moment. I was like, that was a pretty good moment. He was like, which one? I was like, when you talked about the fentanyl lace, and he started laughing. He was like, yeah, that was a good one, right? I was like, that was a really good one. That was a really good one because only Karp, this guy that has a PhD in neoclassical social theory, could discombobulate the idea of the analyst that tried to screw him and, as a byproduct, screw the company by talking about fentanyl-laced urine on a drone sprinkling over these analysts. I mean, just even that, like, who can come up with like the idea of that? Like your mind has to be working at such a level to come up with the idea of that, and then attach it to a philosophical argument about higher purpose and lower purpose. And remember, lower purpose is like, what is your like short-term motivation to try to win? Higher purpose is like, what do you want to do with your life long-term? So the fact that he attached that analogy within those two concepts and created a dichotomy between it, literal unicorn.
Idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us. So that's my lower purpose. And and others. But the higher purpose for me.
Yeah, either he had to be thinking about that for a while and had to load it up in the tuck, because as a content creator, I can relate. You have some phrases that are loaded in your subconscious, and you find the right moment, and then boom, you put them out there and see how the audience reacts to it. Or he came up with that on the spot. And if he did come up with that on the spot, then that's a hell of a statement to make on the spot to be able to get that out there. So, dude, I just think my life has been rooted in communication. A lot of you guys know my story. I did debate in high school, and communication has been the essence of how I think of life, right? Like, how do you get people's attention, communicate, and then how can you communicate in a way that gets people to care about what you have to say, whether it's a debate round, whether it's pitching a startup, whether it's building a business, whether it's talking about a stock, whatever that may be. Communication is the foundation for democracy, for how the world works. Like, everything is rooted in communication. So I have a deep respect for the ability to get the masses to care about an idea based on how you communicate. And Karp's communication style, I mean, whether you love him or hate him, whether you agree or disagree with his politics, you listen. And that's not easy to do, to listen, to get people. There's a lot of CEOs that I don't care what the hell they have to say because they're just not that exciting. And they don't have a way to get my attention to get me to be excited about what they have to say. So when you have someone like Karp that is an American patriot, that believes in Western values, that is, basically antithetical to every other corporate CEO, which is going to hide behind some political belief that their advisors told them to say, Karp's going to be like, I don't care what my advisors say. I'm going to say my political beliefs, regardless of how it impacts the company, which is actually the thing that requires courage, right? It's easy to say XYZ of the moment, no matter what it does, if it affects the company in a good way, right? So if you like believe in this social cause because you know that the company needs you to, as the CEO, to believe in the social cause, and then therefore you voice your opinion, when in reality, freaking Jeff Bezos and Sundar Pichai, they don't care about a lot of these social causes. They just say it because it's Amazon and Google. Whereas Palantir is like, no, we're going to be a big tech company, and we don't really care what the media has to say. You've seen, Palantir get dragged in the media with the New York Times over the past couple of months, and they've been continuing to believe in their opinion. And their opinion is that we are on the side of the West. We will defend the West. If you don't agree with it, don't buy the stock. Don't buy our products and services. And ironically, that's just led more people to wanting to buy the stock and buy the products and services because they believe in what Karp has to say. There's just not many CEOs that can go out there, put their company on the line, and actually believe in something regardless of what other people think. Because the obvious impact is, wait a second, you have shareholders. What about the impact on those shareholders? What about what they're going to say? How are they going to react to it? And Karp just didn't care. And I think that is also part of the reason why he's exciting to listen to, because he's authentic, and that authenticity is hard to find in a CEO. It's just not easy. It's just not easy to find those types of people. So there you go. Outspoken and charismatic, the opposite of the typical mold. Yeah. Sounds like Elon, 100%. Elon will say whatever the hell Elon wants. I mean, Elon has said Trump is on the Epstein list and this and that, and the stock's still trading at $1 trillion. Why? because people, A, respect him for saying it. B, he's built up a shareholder base that actually cares about listening to him when he talks. And when he says, hey, we're going to have 1 million robots in 2030, whether he does it or not, people believe him. And that's what matters to get people to buy into the stock. And then if he can execute, it's just like, all right, now people get to see the results of what he's saying. And Alex Karp has executed, which is why we're getting this type of momentum. So yeah, dude, I think it'll be a good earnings. I don't know how the stock will react. We'll be live at 3:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow to see how this plays out. Overall, we've been covering the story for the past 5 years. It's always exciting when we get into these earnings, but this is the most stoic I've been going into earnings because stocks had an amazing run, and now the company just has to execute against the stock's run. If it goes up, great. If it goes down, if it gets to my levels, I'll buy more. But it's not something that I'm super scared about, I guess. And it's funny because you would think we all should be more scared given the valuations at 370 billion and this and that. It's like, all right, well, what if it corrects all the way back down to 150 billion, which is like getting chopped in half, but 150 billion is still a pretty aggressive valuation for the growth that they're putting up. But even with that, first of all, if it gets to 150 billion, I'll buy a lot more, right? I'll be like, all right, great opportunity to buy more. But number two, I think we have so much belief in Palantir and their ability to execute and all the qualitative and quantitative elements of their execution in terms of partnerships, deals, etc., that it's like you kind of believe the market will continue to recognize their value regardless of if their numbers are exactly the right numbers that the market needs to see. Maybe in the short term there's hiccups, but the idea of a 40-50% drawdown, it's outside of anything happening in the macro, because anything could happen to take every stock down, but Palantir independently falling 40-50%. At this stage of their growth trajectory, I think it's hard to see that happening. I could be wrong, but it's just hard. They've given us way too much confidence to believe that they can continue executing. So that's what we got. We will see what happens with Palantir. Again, 700 customers. I think that'll be 7,000 one day. We are in the early stages, although the stock has appreciated aggressively. The early stages are still the early stages in terms of the company's broader execution. And if they continue to execute, then I think the market will eventually reward it. I guess my level would be around 125, 130. That's the last time I bought. So if we see that again, I'll probably buy more shares. I'd go a lot heavier if we're like 110 or below. But to me, 125, 130, that would be, 20% haircut? I don't think that would be the craziest time to at least nibble a little bit. Now, obviously, if you have a super built out Palantir position, you might not care about buying a massive amount. But whenever there is a dip, just like nibbling a little bit, even if you already have a built out position, I don't think it's crazy, just because you might want to get exposure long term as well. And so now we're just gonna have to see what numbers Palantir puts up tomorrow. Just got off a PayPal stat with Steven. Tanner says, what do you think about PayPal's Alex Chris, and can he get people excited? Truly curious. No, I think Alex Chris is not an exciting person to listen to, unfortunately. And that's also why I think the stock has been in the gutter. I mean, I like Alex Chris as CEO. I think he's a smart guy. I've seen a couple of his interviews. But, I mean, what I just played with Palantir is about 4,000 employees. 4,000. I think like 3,950 is where they're at. What I just played with Karp talking about, fentanyl-laced urine, like Alex Chris would never say something like that. He would never say something like that. Think about that. Karp just said, I want to see the analysts get sprayed by a drone with fentanyl-laced urine because these analysts tried to kill my company and I survived. They didn't. I want to see them dead. Essentially, that's what he said, metaphorically, obviously. Would Alex Chris ever say that? No. So it's like, and now does he have to say that to be that charismatic? Obviously not. But would he even get to 1/10 of that charisma? No. He's just not that type of guy. Vlad, the fact that Vlad is, taking a question from me on the earnings call and embracing retail the way he is, right? His ability to communicate from that perspective, that is charismatic. Vlad has done I think 50 podcasts this year. And the type of gems that he drops on the podcast, they ask, hey, do you feel the pressure? He's like, no, I want the pressure. If we lose, I want people to talk about why the stock's down 20%. I want to feel the pain of winning or losing. When someone gets that deep in terms of how they philosophically think about the world, it's hard to not be attracted to that. Elon Musk, Jensen Huang, when these guys talk about their mission, their vision, you listen. Alex Chris, the guy doesn't get me excited about payment transactions. And the thing is, the best CEOs can make you excited about anything. The best leaders can make you excited about anything, even if it's super boring. Because Karp got us excited about enterprise AI. Like, and before there was AI, everyone was excited about Foundry, which was enterprise B2B software, this ontology thing. Like, why were we all excited? It's because of Karp, his ability to communicate, his ability to get us to care. And so if you can make enterprise B2B software, which is not supposed to be a sexy market by any means, exciting to the masses, then you've obviously, gained the credibility to learn how to communicate. And I think you could make, like, if I was coaching Alex Chris on his communication strategy, I think there's a lot of ways you can make PayPal's overall messaging to the market exciting, especially with this crypto stuff they've got going. I mean, that's what Brian Armstrong, phenomenal CEO, he communicates crypto as freedom, as the sovereignty of the individual, as the ability for people to feel freedom from the bureaucratic financial system that essentially is a tyranny on your ability to express yourself in a financial way. And the whole point of cryptocurrency is this sort of lack of tyranny that is over the individual. And he's articulated that very well throughout a variety of interviews. I think that would be my argument for PayPal, right? Or like that would be the way I would coach it. But I don't think Alex Chris has that. And that's not Alex Chris's fault. A lot of CEOs don't have that. They just don't. A lot of CEOs can't do it. But Alex Chris can. And that's why it's very exciting. All right, folks. I think that's it. Is Anthony Tanev Grab on the same level of Karp and Vlad? No. Unfortunately, this is one of my biggest gripes with Grab CEO. He's not good at he's good at talking. He's great at talking. He doesn't do enough of it. I don't know why he's not on Twitter. I don't know why he doesn't engage with an audience that is massive. Like, he's kind of in the background in Singapore, and I really wish he would talk more. The interviews I have seen of him, and he does like 1 or 2 a year, are really good. And he knows how to inspire people about their mission and all this stuff. I think I shared one on Wednesday. We were watching together. And you want to invest in his company after listening to the guy. Like, he has a hell of a story. He, he left the family business just to be able to build the company, but he doesn't do enough of it. And part of this game is volume. You've got to do a lot of it. Vlad does a lot of talking. Karp does a lot of talking. Elon does a lot of talking. Jensen does a lot of talking. If you can't get people to care, it's going to be hard to get them to invest. And I think that's what Karp and Vlad and Jensen and Elon, these guys, have figured out. Because at the end of the day, like, growth is growth and the numbers are the numbers. But like, PayPal has very decent numbers if given this valuation. I'm not saying it's the most attractive growth stock in the world, but dude, they're buying back 10% of the float. Yes, their growth is not amazing, but their growth is not horrible by any sense of the imagination. This is theoretically supposed to be a screaming buy. Fair value, I've seen upwards of $85 to $90. Stocks at $68. What's the issue? The issue is narrative. And as a result, that's why we're not seeing a lot of momentum. Guys, I can't call Steve. He just got done with Tanner. I don't even know if the guy is free. Apparently, he was on a video with Tanner, or a live stream with Tanner. Second of all, Steve was on... Dude, this is why Steve needs to start a channel. He was on Thursday and Friday for 2 hours each. And you guys want more Steve. I will give him a call, but if he just got done with Tanner, I don't know if he's going to be free. Let's see if he picks up. Let's see. He's not going to be giving you the same fun thoughts that I'm giving you on Palantir earnings if we ask him about that. But let's see. If he was on with Tanner, he's free. Yeah, but he was on with Tanner, so.
She's not available at the
I mean, there's a reason if he was live streaming with Tanner, then he's not free right now, because he probably finished the live stream with Tanner and probably has something to do. Or else he would have been still live streaming with Tanner, because Steve, he can talk for hours. Unless he actually needed to go, or he, had other stuff to do. Call twice. I'm happy you guys love Steve this much. I'm just like, oh, he also has a life, dude. Like, if he just got done with a live stream with Tanner, he can't just hop onto my stream for the next hour and talk. Like, the dude also has like a wife and he has work tomorrow. Like, he has other stuff going on, But hopefully I'll be able to get his thoughts on Palantir in the market open. Now, we talked a lot about Palantir on Friday. So for anyone who wants his thoughts, you can go listen to it. He thinks no matter what earnings Palantir puts up, they can't justify the valuation. That's one perspective. I disagree. I think if they can really grow, then the market will continue to respect the way Palantir has grown. But yeah, dude, in general, this is really a question of how well can you communicate? How well can you get people to care? And, you know, when you can really get people to understand your vision, then it's hard to lose. I want to share one more clip of Karp and talk about this as well. This is when he talked about suing the US government back in 2011 and winning, which was obviously not easy for them to do, but the fact that they did it, you know, was one of the reasons they had the massive advantage that they had as well. So let me play this clip right here. We'll end it off on this.
That's the venture perspective. And we had to scrape and cling and figure out things. And there was no playbook that could possibly work for us. And no one with a playbook wanted to work at Palantir. So that's the other like big advantage we had. All these big companies, all the right credentials, adults, they all wanted to work at these companies. They found their way in. You know where they didn't want to work? Palantir. and so we had the benefit of just like, you know, it's like we were, you know, in this desert and we had to make it work, and we did. And by the way, and again, I like things have gotten so much better, and like our relationship with the US government now are very strong, but it was strictly forbidden to talk to Palantir for like a decade. Like people always, you know, we have this hilarious thing, like we have a pretty big business in Europe. It's growing slowly. It's like growing 10x slower than America. But in any case, sometimes we'll deal with like European clients and are like, you know, like, well, the US government, it must be so easy for you. It's like, no, like, you know, we sued the US government twice. We won, and then they went back to court because they hated us so much. Yeah, that's a completely true story.
Let me ask you a question about both your relationship with the U.S.
But
government.
you know, just sorry to, but it's like, you know, I viewed it as an act of love to sue the U.S. government. Not because I really care about this country. And the French have this great saying, "Qui aime bien châtie bien," which means if you really care, I don't know if the French speak, you'll be very exacting. It's not caring to not sue if that thing is going to really screw up our nation. And you know that double suing the US government opened the door to all these great defense tech startups, innovation, broke down the door. And I would not have done it. There's another act of like complete stupidity. The most important, if you turn on the news and see national security advisors, every single one of them came into my office and sat just like this. And they're like, "Hey, Alex, it's nice to meet you and nice to talk to you." And they said exactly the same thing. They're like, "If you sue the US government, everyone will know you're an asshole." I'm like, "But I don't think people think I'm an asshole." It's like, no, it's not a problem. It's okay. We like creative assholes, but we don't want everyone to know it. It's like, no, I actually care, and we're going to sue those fuckers, and we're going to win. And by the way, when we sued them, we did not sue them to buy Palantir. This is one of the most important things. We sued them to get meritocracy. It was not you buy Palantir if we win this suit. It was you will have a meritocratic process. That's what we were fighting with the US government about, to make sure the field of play was somewhat uneven. We were like, I told our lawyers, like, I don't even need meritocracy. They can shoot down at us, but they can't be dumping stuff from a skyscraper down. We have to be able to shoot back. And that changed the way procurement works in this country. And it's one of the main reasons why we have battlefield superiority in certain areas.
Okay, given though.
So, I mean, you got a CEO that sued his biggest customer because they were inappropriately and undemocratically and unmeritocratically procuring software, aka that guy knows that guy's dad who works at Raytheon. Okay, the government could buy Raytheon's product. You know, like that's how government was, particularly software was procured back in 2010. And then Palantir 15 years ago said, we're not going to tolerate that. And they won after suing the government. And then the government was forced not to buy Palantir software, but forced to figure out what software was the best software, not what software was based on the guy who works at the other guy's company that's on the board of directors, therefore they get the contract. And that has opened up the possibility for so many other companies to be able to now work within the DoD. So, you know, you got a guy that just went to war with his biggest customer in order to save not only the business, but the health of American software procurement. And as a result, that ability for them to not only scale that within the government and then eventually compound government revenues, but bring that to the commercial sector with the same mentality. Hey, we've got the right product. Try the product. Don't pay us if it doesn't work. Pay us a lot of money if it does work. Oh, it does work? All right, pay us a lot of money. Customers say, hey, yeah, because we want something that works. I think the market cares more about actual value that software enterprises can bring to governments and commercial enterprises versus just the BS narrative that software companies have been propped up on for the past 15 years. And that's what Palantir has been able to deliver. And that's why I think Palantir is trading the way that it's trading at right now. All right, there we go, folks. That's it. I will be back tomorrow on the market open and then market close again, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. We will have Palantir earnings. Well, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 p.m. We will have the beginning of coverage. I believe Arnie will be with me. Hopefully, Amir and Matt as well. And yeah, it'll be another day. It'll be another day into the journey of Palantir. Not expecting anything massive on the share price, but I am expecting a pretty good quarter with pretty good numbers, and I think they'll be able to do it. And if they do, it'll be exciting. Dude, I'm not going to get a Bam out of bio jersey. I'm going to get D Wade. It's freaking D Wade. It's Miami. I got to do D Wade. I've got to do D Wade if we're going to Miami. Again, Miami forum right here. I'll put it right here in the chat. You guys can check it out if you have not signed up. And if you do want to, you will get an email soon as well. I'm definitely not getting Butler. That's not happening. I'm not getting LeBron either, bro. Bron's been treating my boy Drake not in the nicest way, bro. I don't know why Drake and Bron have beef. They used to be best friends, and now Bron screwed him over or something. Not liking Bron right now, given what he's been doing to Drake. Also, Bron wasn't really is Bron a Miami legend? Like he came there, got 2 rings, then left. I mean, like, do people really? D Wade though is a legend. D Wade is a legend. My grab options are $7.50, $10 call debit spreads. I also have $7 December 2027 calls, and the debit spreads expired January 2027. So those are the spreads that I have on grab, but I've been buying a lot more shares now as well. So there you go. All right, folks. I think that's it. That is it. We will be back tomorrow morning. I don't know if there's going to be massive sort of things to look out for tomorrow in particular. I know in a couple of days we have PMI tomorrow, but tomorrow on the news front, unless Trump says something, nothing too crazy. Going into the end of the week, we have a lot of companies reporting earnings. Obviously, Palantir tomorrow, that's a big one, but then we have a lot more companies throughout the rest of the week. And I think what's going to be important for tomorrow is, do we have the ability to see the markets continue to dump based on how they dumped on Friday, or do people step in? And quite frankly, given August tends to suck, I don't expect any massive buying momentum coming in. Just like in the pre-markets or in the overnight markets, we're not getting anything. Like, we're getting a little bit of move on Palantir, but S&P is basically flat. Maybe volume's flat throughout the rest of the month as well on the broader markets. But given Trump, it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine it's going to be that flat, because whether it's trade deals or whatever news he ends up making, you'll see something that the market wants to respond to. All right, folks, that's it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll be back tomorrow morning. And Palantir, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, we'll be live, and we'll keep covering it and see what numbers they can put up as well as we end out the second quarter for earnings. Again, this is going to be the biggest week for earnings. 40% of companies. Last week was a pretty big week. This is the last big week. And then after that, we're basically done waiting for NVIDIA. And then we're good to go. All right, folks. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll be back tomorrow morning for the market open. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.